Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the latest episode of T3PO Live. I'm your host, VashSky. Welcome in right here. Apparently, Pro Show has just ended, and so the Pro Raid may be coming early, which is fine. Welcome on in. The water's warm, folks. We have an excellent show for you today, talking about that amazing New York Times article. 12,000 words or something? A pretty incredible expose. We've got some news items as well on the agenda. And as Pro said, yes, we have a little bit of information on that Ray movie right here. But let's go ahead and welcome in this fantastic panel, guys. I mean, I don't know how it happened, but we've assembled one of the best crews we've ever had here on the channel today. We have Lou, Wasserman's Ghost. We have Marvin, the movie monster, Nolan Thunder, and an incredible, amazing person who I just owe everything to, who is somebody I very much respect and look up to, and it is so amazing to be joined by him today as well. Jonas J. Campbell. What is going on, guys? Welcome to T3PO Live.
I didn't know the New York Times knew 12,000 words.
That is,
I believe at least 6,000 of them are "and then."
Yeah.
that
Reports say.
No, man, that's probably the right way to go about that, because I was very surprised that an expose like this come from the New York Times. But Jonas, you actually have a little bit of information about some of the authors included in this piece, don't you?
Yeah. First of all, it is from Brooke Barnes, who is a New York Times guy, but James B. Stewart is the author on this piece, and he is, by the way, there's a little note for you in the back there, Vash. He is one of the authors of Disney War, probably the primary author, actually. The book, which is one of the most excellent chroniclings of the rise and fall of Michael Eisner, and of course Jeffrey Katzenberg and Frank Wells. May he rest in peace. Disney War is an excellent read that I've seen a lot of people comment on that book. I'm not going to say it's historically inaccurate. That's not at all what I would say. But I know of people who were studied in that and contemplated in that book that go, that is an interesting retelling that I wouldn't necessarily would think would hold up in a court of law.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That is accurate. I'm sure there's some salacious. I don't know. Go ahead, Luke.
I was going to say books don't have to unless they're overtly slanderous or libelous or whatever. And for that, you have to prove malice and intent. And if it was just, we were just wandering through and stuff happened, So anyway, but it is a fun book.
It is.
I guess this is the first draft of the next one. This article.
It would appear so. It appears so.
Yeah, actually, that's the thing that I wonder here is James B. Stewart has said he's not writing a sequel to Disney War, but then you get this piece out of the blue, which is shockingly similar to a piece that was released almost about a year ago, from Alex Sherman. Sherman's being 12, 13, whatever it is about 1,000 words more, and is the origin of some of these stories that we love so much, specifically the hippo story, or Bob Chapek in the front of the Disney jet here. So
yes,
it's a little strange.
It's as if Sherman not Sherman, this guy, Jimmy Stewart. Wow. If we sat down with our New York Times editors and said, we can't let this guy steal our thunder. Why don't you rewrite it for us? And you could have a book. But I said we weren't doing a book again. Yeah, and I said, here's your advance offer. Oh, well, maybe we will. Maybe we will. I mean, in the interest of full disclosure and history and all the news that fits we print,
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Absolutely. This article, like Jonas was describing, does hit on a lot of the same stories that Alex Sherman just so beautifully and eloquently put back a year ago when that article was originally released. Adds some details that we might not have known, but covers a lot of the same ground. So we want to go ahead and keep things fresh here, or at least put a fresh perspective on some of these things. This article here, it's a big one, folks. It's huge, and so I've had to put it in a PDF with highlights because there's just so much in here. The article starts out though going over the handoff, let's say, that occurred on CNBC on February 25th when Bob Iger hands the reins officially to Bob Chapek on CNBC. And it talks about body language, but instead of reading it, you can just see it right here. Audio is not necessary. Yeah, Bob maybe not so happy about maybe his decision at this moment. The article describes that Bob Chapek at this time was feeling like, the body language on Iger, not so good in this instance. And he would be right, unfortunately, for Mr. Chapek there. Iger was not all fully on board, at least at this moment anyway, but the tides really started to turn, especially with that plane ride that would occur later on here. So let's go ahead and get into the meat of some of these stories here. And I would love your reactions panel to some of these because, man, oh man, it's quite interesting. But as alluded to, just weeks into his tenure as chief executive, Bob Chapek expressed his frustration. I can't survive another 2 years of this. Bob Chapek told Arthur Bachner, his chief of staff, Mr. Iger, quote, is not going to leave. He'll be here until he dies. Which, I
think he'll be there when he's dead, too.
yes. It's funny you say that, Nolan, because my own mother was like, yeah, his presence will be felt even after he passes.
No.
If there is anyone who has the ability to upload their consciousness into a computer and so that he can continue to just be terrible forever, it's Bob Iger.
No. They'll seal him in that material that they sealed Han Solo in and make him a permanent tribute in what is now the shower stall in the executive office. And he'll be there clawing to try and stay in.
So imaginative. But no, I mean, he has really laid the foundation here for his presence to be felt even after this. He's handpicked basically the entire board. He's placed so many people in key positions of power that have obviously fueled their own activists and so forth. Definitely in the thinking or mindset of Bob Iger. He's going to be felt for years to come. And as this article says right here, as he had feared, his successor was Iger. I think that's accurate for sure.
You know, as Vash and I were discussing a little bit ago privately, if this doesn't say anything else, regardless of who you like, who you don't, it shows you that Bob Iger is an astoundingly bad judge of people, because he's worked with this guy Chapek for years. He's had him under his tutelage for years before he ever decides, after a much vaunted search amongst all the possible candidates, some of which he ran off, but that's another story, that this is the guy. And how quickly does he suddenly, oh, he's not going to be my robot? What a shocker. And secondarily, it says of Chapek, for him to suddenly realize that Iger's going nowhere, God, what a bad judge of character he was. It's amazing that people can work so closely together for so long and so completely misjudge, for good or for ill, who these other people are and what their prerogatives are. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A tremendously bad judge of character. Whereas,
go slow on this part. Tell me the part about Ovitz, because, you know, when they picked Ovitz and had to pay him, what was it, 50, I forget, but a lot of money to go away after no time. My joke to all my friends in the biz was, I sure wish they'd have picked me, because I would have gone away for half that much. They could have got a deal.
Yeah, and people will note that around that time as well, I think Michael Ovitz was ushered out of the company because of his comments about a particular community in Hollywood. Very interesting. But
and for a big agent, that's kind of funny too.
Yeah. I don't think Chapek understood what he was getting into when he was thrust into.
And why not? That's my question.
What is described as the snake pit from the New York Times.
Can I say a comment on that? I like how it's called the snake pit. The snake pit. I feel like Chapek probably felt more like Samuel L. Jackson in Snakes on a Plane, you know? Had it with these snakes on this plane.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I mean, I think he was maybe taken aback at, like, obviously he had navigated the waters previously, but getting into the upper echelons at this level, I mean, the snake pit, it is indeed. For a company that bills its theme parks as the happiest place on earth, Disney's corporate headquarters have long been anything but a hotbed of intrigue and power struggles. Mr. Chapek's former chief of staff told People the company's 6th floor executive suite was a, quote, snake pit. Very much indeed. It talks about here the machinations this has taken on ever since Michael Eisner, with Frank Wells passing away, the Jeffrey Katzenberg, attempting to grab that job for himself, then having to be, basically ushered out of the company himself because, he was trying to get a position that Michael Eisner didn't want to necessarily hand him over. We talked about Michael Ovitz here. I mean, it's just been a complete nightmare.
And when you add to that people like, George Lucas's strained relationship with KK, and Pixar and all the rest, the first thing any sensible business leader, let's say there was another company out there that, because it wasn't really the same at Fox. There wasn't one guy or one personality running the company at that point. Mm-hmm. But if there was a company out there that I've always been joking lately that Iger's big finale will be buying Kellogg's so that they can use the IP of Tony the Tiger and Rice Krispies and in the theme parks. But if I was the head of any company that Disney had the slightest designs on, my first thought would be, what are they going to really do to me once they get their claws in? What are they really going to do? And what are they doing it because they like me, or they like my company, or they like what we do, or as a poker chip to use in some other intrigue that I know nothing about? That's not a good rep. That's not a good rep in a business where everybody's looking at everybody else.
I would agree with you. Yeah, not a good rep indeed. But, speaking of somebody who does have a great rep, who, when I sent out the invite, I was like, hey, I hope this person is on. And, well, you know what? Here you go. Spencer McCooley.
Hey, happy to be back, guys. Hey, I'm doing well. I'm happy to be back stateside so that I can finally be back on these live streams with everybody. I have to admit, I did not know where you were going with that lead in. And honestly, either way it went, I was okay with it. I would have understood.
Well, I do try. Thank you so
You're
much,
a very
Spencer.
understanding guy, Spencer. It's just who you are.
You know what? I try
Absolutely.
to understand things, unlike the leadership at Disney. I try to listen to the people.
We were just going over some of this New York Times article. I'm sure you've read it, or at least big portions of it. This has
but
a
I
lot
haven't had a
of.
chance to dive in and discuss it, so I am here for this. Let's keep going. I was listening to it before I hopped on. I just had to clean up my desk, but yeah, this is wild.
Well,
This
you
is
know,
wild.
I'm glad that you keep your priorities straight, because a clean desk is so much more important than this show. And let that be a lesson
your
to
words,
all of
not
you
mine.
out there.
I didn't say that. Hey.
And you know who you
Wikipedia,
are, all you
quote him.
people out there with the messy desks.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes. Iger did contemplate, though, his eventual departure that would come, whenever that happens to be, I guess. The article says here, Iger, who started his career as a weatherman on a cable channel in upstate New York, had vowed to never follow in Eisner's footsteps. To friends, he mocked Eisner's fears about leaving Disney, that his calls to power brokers would go unreturned, and that he wouldn't be able to get top reservations at restaurants. Oh, wow. The priorities, I suppose. That's what the important thing is post Disney.
That's the theme of the
Top
show.
reservations.
Priorities.
Oh man, he told Chapek and others that he would never stay more than 10 years, and now we are
why
in.
would anyone believe that? I mean, I'm not saying that they wouldn't think, well, if he screws up, they'll kick him out.
Well,
But
I'm assuming,
but knowing
that,
the guy and knowing, the ride of a lifetime, head of this big
Right.
company, where would he go?
You're at the
What's
head
it
of
with
Disney. You don't just walk away from that. You make
Well,
up
you
some
do
excuse
if
to go,
He just
well,
comes around
you
and
do,
implements.
out well.
Spencer, you do walk away if the next address instead of Buena Vista Street is Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yep.
oh, that's
So,
an interesting
you know.
point.
And
Nolan,
then
you're saying-
that should bring any rational person this thought. If all he's looking at is his next job 10 years from now, because it's a different thing to say, I'd never stay here more than 10 versus I'll do 10 and retire.
Well, that's
Why
a-
do you
that's a fair
want him
point.
for only 10?
But I think at the time that he was telling Chapek this, never say more than 10. I mean, that could have been very early on. So we didn't, nobody could have predicted that he would have postponed his retirement 6 times. That's interesting too.
But why not? All I'm trying to say is all of these people, and
Yeah.
I mean, back to Walt and back to the great heads of industry, past, present, future. Well, the difference being that for Walt or Henry Ford or Thomas Edison, their name's on the door, as opposed to some generic corporate entity. But why would
That's fair.
anyone think that anybody with the kind of drive and ego and self-possession to put together companies like this would say, yeah, but I'm only going to do it for 10 years and then I'll just...
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean, Lou. You get to that point. When he came on and he said that, I was like, no, you'll come up with some dumb crisis thing or some reason why you have to stay. We're in the middle of a downturn. I don't want to hand the reins off to somebody when it's in a bad state, and you hang on for X amount of years. I felt there was never any real chance he was going to leave in 10. No way. That was a PR move straight and straight.
No, but that was
So what
him
you're
wanting to be
saying-
president.
So what you're saying, Spencer, is that he's the Brett Favre of CEOs, is what you're saying.
Yes,
Yes.
that's 100% what that is. 1,000%
Yes.
what I'm saying. That is perfect.
Yes. Oh, that's so very true. Well, apparently, okay. So this is what's really interesting about this. This article continues here. It's established that he's postponing his retirement multiple times, right? And obviously the 10-year thing is not even true. But I find it particularly interesting though that he would leave at this time, because you got to put yourself in the mindset of February of 2020, because it was crazy to have somebody leave on at this time. as it's Diesel's right here, Iger told Chapek to schedule a series of one-on-one meetings with Disney's directors to build a rapport and lay out his vision for the company's future. Fair enough. But in late 2017, Disney reached a deal to buy the entertainment assets at 21st Century Fox. Iger received a big bonus for consummating the deal, stock awards of up to $142 million at the then current share price. Oh, well, that's $142 million to do that, I guess. And the board extended his contract for a sixth time. He would now retire at the end of 2021. Mr. Chapek cancels his plans to meet with directors. What's interesting here is that he leaves right when the ink dries on this deal. I think that concludes formally on 2019. In November of 2019, that's when Disney Plus is launched. And then in January, we started to hear rumblings of something going on in China of 2020, that is. And so, and I believe in the months between January and February 25th, when Iger officially announces that he's stepping aside effective immediately, makes Chapek the CEO, the parks in Hong Kong and Shanghai are already closed. And as this article actually details, Iger knew about this, knew about everything, and still decided to part ways. And so I think this is really fascinating right here. It's like, why the rush? Is there a life after Disney? Let's see here. There were aspects that of the job that Mr. Iger didn't especially enjoy, like earnings presentations and being grilled by Wall Street analysts. He had grown tired of budget meetings, all those pesky CEO things that you have to do, of course.
Who feels bad for him? Like, no, that's your job. Be quiet. I don't feel bad for you at all in the least.
Right, exactly. He often complained to Mr. Chapek and other board members about his compensation. It was a frequent source of tension between him and Susan Arnold, who sat on the compensation committee for many years. Iger pointed repeatedly to Leslie Moonves, the chief executive of CBS, who was paid more than him, even though CBS was a much smaller and much less complex company. Fair enough, I suppose. In 2017, Mr. Moonves made $69.3 million, whereas Iger made $36.3 million.
Does anybody here know anything about Mr. Moonves? Because I will tell you, I will tell you the big definitional difference in past history and experience between the two men. Bob Iger was a weatherman and a corporate executive with ABC. Moonves actually produced movies. Actually was a real live working producer. Not Star Wars, not a million, but he'd actually done, he'd labored in the mine before he moved up to foreman, before he moved up to manager, before he moved up to regional director. Iger never did any of that. Yeah. So, Iger. And here's this next paragraph about Jobs telling him, don't stay too long because there's great things life has to offer. I'm sure he didn't say it to Jobs' face, but Iger would have had a bemused, curious look on his face and said, like what? This is the things life has to offer. Being the boss, being the guy that made the deal for your company, the guy that made the deal for Marvel, and the guy that made the deal for Fox and all that. And of course, we have to remember that purchase of Fox was hugely over what they originally planned to pay, because his buddy across the aisle at Universal said, I know what I'll do. I'll drive the price up. He was the shill at the opera. And but in the process, I'll make them stuck with a lot more. And so, anyway.
Jonas, you were saying?
Just that Bob Iger's history is with ABC News and with sports. That is the thing that Bob Iger is good at. If he's good at anything here, is messaging and trying to shape a narrative. And pre-internet, he was probably a much better. He didn't know how difficult that would be in the current day. He didn't have people like us sitting on this panel, helping everyone to understand all the additional context that goes into things like this.
Also, Jonas, you or I could sit back and research for 2 days all the people that he was basically in competition with to move up the ladder at ABC. But if they weren't that great, it isn't as big a deal. I mean, you can be, I'm the guy that made this company what it is today. And in the process, I worked my way through many people with bigger jobs and bigger titles and bigger income, but I succeeded. Well, what if they all sucked?
I mean, you never know.
They might have been okay, but you might have been just a little better than okay. But when you're the only one who's a little better, you win the game. So
apparently the board may have come to some kind of conclusion there, because in 2018, shareholders rejected Iger's compensation in a non-binding vote. Disney won approval in 2019 only after Iger agreed to a smaller package. When the company's board met in December 2019, Iger broached the idea of stepping back, but not leaving entirely. Quote, "Why don't we accelerate the process?" Very interesting. Iger suggested. Chapek was his choice to succeed him. Iger told the board that Chapek knew the brand well, respected it, and would do no harm. He also said Chapek had great integrity. One of Disney's directors, Mark Parker, had recently decided to step down as chief executive of Nike and become executive chairman. Iger pitched the idea of doing the same thing. That model would allow him to stay at Disney for the remainder of his contract, doing what he liked to do best, overseeing the company's creative endeavors. Oh, that's fantastic. Stuff like The Acolyte, for example. That's those kind of creative endeavors, I'm sure. Chapek would become the CEO and handle everything else. A crucial element was that all the division leaders would report to Chapek, but Chapek would report to Iger, leaving Iger ultimately in charge. And there was an obviously a financial incentive as well. Iger still had more than $100 million in unvested stock options, and his leadership could help protect its value. Jonas, I wanted to ask you, is there any way that this could have possibly ever worked in any existence ever?
No.
Fact...
In fact, I don't mean to jump ahead in anything here, but essentially with Iger being the person that Chapek reported to, it was found out that was essentially not copacetic with the corporate bylaws, otherwise known as the laws of the company. Obviously, corporations can change their laws, but it goes against SEC regulations for them to defy their own corporate bylaws without them changing them. So, and there's a reason for that. And there's a reason that even though corporations do this all the time on the lower level here, having a boss and a dotted line report, it removes accountability. When you have a CEO, that CEO needs to know exactly who they are supposed to be pleasing with what they're doing here. And in this case, it wasn't the shareholders, it was Bob Iger. And
yes,
of course, when we talk about the Disney board, it's essentially an inactive board. If the board is also doing whatever Bob Iger wants, it essentially becomes Bob Iger. And it sounds like Susan Arnold, who was the chairman of the board at the time, it sounds like that she was the go-between between Bob Iger and Bob Chapek, who stopped talking to each other.
Yes.
So when you refuse to talk to your boss, what does that say about the health of the relationship of the company here? Eventually, Iger, after he got back in, had her kicked out as well. So, Iger just doesn't seem like he's great to work with.
He's burying the witnesses.
Yeah, he just comes in and just swings and says, "Give me what I want."
It is wild because we've talked about it too when talking about the proxy war that just recently happened with Nelson Peltz. It was very clear. It's like, what I think Peltz himself made this argument. What representation do shareholders have on this board? Everybody's handpicked by Iger. Everybody has a lack of experience when it comes to especially the creative endeavors of the company, but just the complexes surrounding this specific organization. It's like, what qualifies them to even be on the board rather than they're just Iger's puppets? What representation do shareholders like us have? And I thought it was a pretty compelling case. And in this article, it kind of outlines why representation from a shareholder's perspective is probably pretty crucial to the.
So, are you saying that if somebody told Bob Iger that the board would decide his fate, he would say, "I am the board"?
That's it exactly. That's it exactly. No, and before he does the sheave thing and just slice up everybody. Yeah, effectively he could do that. And even the people who were maybe not completely on board with Iger's moves, and especially when it comes to cultural issues, that's the thing that surprised me about Safra Katz, actually, as detailed in this article. She goes on to say that she wasn't on board with Strange World coming out, for example, and she wasn't on board with Chapek and all these things. Even people like her, they're gone. But you're gonna say, Marvin?
No, I was just saying. So essentially, Peltz and Perlmutter were Mace Windu and Kit Fisto. And then George Lucas came in as Anakin, and they were like, "Don't listen to him, George. I need him."
Yes.
Well, from the few pictures I've seen in this condition, Peltz is more likely to play the guy with his shirt off in The Acolyte than Iger ever could.
Absolutely.
By the way,
absolutely.
you've seen that Peltz this week resigned from the board of Wendy's that he's been on.
Yep.
And as I said when it happened, I said, does this mean he's going to take more time with the grandkids and go away from all this, a happy, wealthy man? Or does this mean he's clearing himself from any distractions before he launches the great joust with Iger again? So we'll see.
That's what he said. He said he was going to be focusing on Trian here, so that he can
Trian to take Disney away.
Exactly.
If at first you don't succeed, Trian again.
That's perfect.
That's amazing, right there.
Well, look, this story is huge, and I don't know that we can get to all of it today, but I do know that I was watching in part of the previous epic over on the Pro channel, and Jonas. Supposed to have a big scoop for us, according to Pro. So,
well, let's talk about that.
Please.
Okay, so the Rey movie. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. I'm going to take you through a little history here. Rey is a character that was in these Star Wars films. That people watched the first of these Star Wars films, but about half the number of people watched the last of her Star Wars films. I'm obviously joking around.
I mean, at that point, Rey was no longer a drop of golden sun.
She is
me, a name I call myself.
She's all the Jedi, and she's also apparently all of the Sith. She's both the evil villain and the hero, all wrapped into
about
one.
The power of many.
I tell you what. She is. They keep spamming those keys. Well, she's everything of this, and she's everything, and it's all the ships, by the way, and it's all the Star Destroyers. What a great ending there. And somehow, with that level of writing, they bring in this guy right here. This is not someone who wrote The Rise of Skywalker. I want to be clear here. I'm going to put some respect on this guy's name here. Star Wars Stephen Knight steps in to write new movie following Damon Lindelof departure. You guys need to note the date here, March 22nd of 2023. That is last year. This guy right here, let's see, Lindelof and Justin Britt Gibson worked on the script, which is from Miss Marvel director Charmin Obaid Chinoy. Worked on the script, past tense there. This guy is also known for, among other things, Peaky Blinders. I hear rave reviews about that show.
Yeah, I've only seen clips, but it looks awfully good. So, but of course, it's got Cillian Murphy. So
wait a minute. What is a man doing in here trying to write this movie? I thought it was about time that a woman dictated what happens in a galaxy far,
so
far
you
away,
sexist,
according
you
to
sexist,
Charmin Obaid Chinoy.
You assume he identifies as a man, right?
Oh, yeah.
How dare you?
Silly me.
Now, I'm just going to point out.
For that matter, he may fit another category because he might identify as a different ethnicity, and they thought they were getting a Dark Knight. But anyway,
I'm also going to point out that this was about the time that we got some official confirmation that Damon Lindelof was working on this in the past. Stephen Knight also, supposed to be working on this script, but then not that long after that, just fast forward 1 month, Happy Valley star Sarah Lancashire and Peaky Blinders creator Stephen Knight will bring Shakespeare's life story to TV screens. Look, it's even the same picture. They didn't even have time to shoot a new picture here. Looks like he's working on a TV show. There's a lot more words in TV shows, by the way.
Show of hands, just on a side issue. Never mind percentage of readers of the audience out there nowadays. What percentage of subscribers to Variety do you think even knows who Shakespeare is?
More than you can shake a spear at.
How many subscribers are there to Variety first? Let's answer that question.
Wasn't he the guy who wrote 10 Things I Hate About You? The original treatment.
All I know is I think they made a movie about his sex life called Shakespeare in Love. But
it's a mystery.
Anyway.
I hear he hangs out in the park a lot in New York. That's all I know. That's his normal hangout.
Yeah, so the thing that I'm trying to say here is Stephen Knight, obviously in demand, and I don't think he's written a script yet. At this point or at any point. Looking here, the next story, Daisy Ridley says her next Star Wars film is not what I expected. November 23rd.
I expected it to get made.
She keeps. That's the thing. Like Daisy Ridley, and I'm sure this is what you're getting to, Jonas. But like, all we've heard about this movie so far is Daisy Ridley coming out and going, "Oh, I'm so excited! I was so interested in what they're going to do with Rey." And then people go, "Do you know what's going to happen? Have you seen a script?" And she goes, I don't know yet." And it's like, so what is happening?
And she never would have been out there in the first place if they hadn't been putting her out there to be out there to keep people aware of this project and alive. And they didn't even give her enough to lie well about it.
I honestly felt bad for her because I'm like, what is she supposed to do? All she has is, yes, I agreed to come back, and now you're throwing her back into the press pool.
I'm not a fan of hers one way or the other. I have never seen much of her that I thought was that special. But I'm certainly not a fan of Rachel Zegler, and I'm certainly not a fan of what's her name, Brie Larson. But this is what Disney seems to do over and over and over again, is put these actresses out to promote something that is so amorphous and so unknown and so weird. Yeah. And they don't give them anything to say. And when they do, when they say to a Rachel Zegler who's not that bright, hey, talk about the fact that this is a modern version. And she carries on from there to, it's not like that stalker thing that pervert Disney made back then.
Exactly.
It's like you can't turn these people on and not be able to turn them off, and they don't know how to handle it.
I think with Daisy Ridley, if I can defend her a little bit here, they have given her plenty of opportunities to be like, Daisy, don't you hate toxic fans? Aren't Star Wars fans so toxic? And she has never taken the bait on that.
Good for her. She's
always just like,
taken it once. She has taken it once. There was some point where she was like, yes, most of the interviews she doesn't. I forget the exact context. I know I covered it over on Bounding into Comics. You can go check out the archives for it there. I'll pull it up as we keep going if we want to see it later. But it was something like, she basically said like fans were misogynist. It wasn't like they're toxic, they're racist, they're awful, but it was something. It wasn't all the way in, but it was definitely like touching on that, and it was sort of a disappointment. But it was only that one interview. From there on out, she's never really brought it up. Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Happily tap dance on the heads of all their fans. It's I've heard her multiple times say like, well, no, the fans have been very kind to me. They're just very passionate.
Baseball been very, very good to me.
I gotta give respect though to Daisy Ridley, because you look at where she's at in life, spearheading what was one of the biggest franchises of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy putting her on a podium to be like, all right, this is your chance. Tell all those stupid Star Wars losers men how awful they are. And she doesn't take the bait most of the time. She's actually been very respectful.
Is there some connection there?
I just, there's also something to be said for the fact that she was a young actress. She had like no big career, and they said, come join Star Wars. And then they gave her J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, and then J.J. Abrams again. She kind of never had a chance to work with anything that was going to be good material. So I feel like that hurt her career as well. I'm kind of with you, like with Marvin. I don't really have anything against her. And I'm with Lou. I think it's a little unfair of how Disney keeps throwing their own talent under the bus to cover up their own what would you call it? Not like impulsivity, because like they keep announcing things and then they go, okay, go talk about that. And the actress goes, what am I supposed to say? It's Snow White. You guys know Snow White, right? Like that's what they do it all the time. So yeah.
I think it also has to do with how certain actresses deal with anxiety, because when you're in that kind of position, you're going to have a lot of people talk about you like you're dirt. I remember reading last year about how she basically literally physically made herself sick. Like she had like a hole in her stomach or something like that. From
actually, that's a good opportunity for me to bring up the story here. Daisy Ridley teases new Star Wars film is taking story in a different direction. We're finally to January 15th of this year. Daisy Ridley set to reprise the role of Rey, an upcoming Star Wars film directed by SOC. By the way, she was very silent, even though she was promoting a film for Hulu out there. New interview, Ridley is expressing her excitement over the project and teasing that the story is going in a different direction. But down here, she said she was having digestional issues before I went on stage. Probably not literally, because no one knew I was going to going to that. No one knew I was going to Celebration bar like Kathleen Kennedy. There were a couple of people. I was so nervous. It was such a wonderful reception. I'm very excited. The story is very cool. But I'm going to point out here. I'm just going to skip ahead here to May of this year. Again, much closer to now. Disney Star Wars Rey movie still has no script. The writer here, Jordan Ruemi, says that this past January, I posted sources telling me that Daisy Ridley starring Rey movie, potentially titled New Jedi Order, directed by Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, was delayed indefinitely. Never said the movie wasn't happening. In fact, Ridley is now telling THR there is currently no script for the film. She hasn't read a word of the story. Stephen Knight is supposed to be penning the script, and I had been told last year a draft had been written for the movie, but Lucasfilm gave Knight so many notes that he had to start from scratch. To make matters worse, there is the possibility that Knight may not be staying on board for the project. His frustrations have grown, so he's put Star Wars on the back burner and is now focused on, by the way, the Peaky Blinders movie, June. This is just a few days after that article came out. Peaky Blinders movie officially greenlit at Netflix.
A better move, honestly.
With Killian, I mean, honestly, and this is his baby. He's the creator of Peaky Blinders. Cillian Murphy starring and producing, Tom Harper to direct, from Stephen Knight's No Holds Barred script. This by Nancy Tartaglione. We could get into all of the details here, but if the script was already written, hey, Lou, when a big star signs on to a project, do they keep the script as is when a big star signs on? So
because part of his deal will be, but I want this, and this changed. I remember, if you want to read the best, probably still the best, although it's not young anymore, book about screenwriting, William Goldman wrote this book about adventures in the screen trade. And he talked about writing a script that everybody thought was great, and they took it to a major star. I forget who it was. I think it was, well, anyway, I think it was Paul Newman, but it might have been somebody else, who said, it's a great script, it's a wonderful story, I won't do it. And he asked him why. And he said, because this is a script. He says, my stories are the ones where I make things happen. This is a script about a guy that things happen to.
Well, I'll also add a much lesser analogy to that, to this, or a reference to this. Will Smith was originally going to play Neo in the Matrix movies.
Yeah.
And there's no way that those movies exist as they exist now if Will Smith is in that role. So
I know kung fu.
But they end with a Fresh Prince rap based on the Matrix.
Yeah.
Come on.
Red pill, blue pill, what are they gonna do, pill?
We got to get back to that timeline. Woo! Come on.
Well, I hinted at it just a moment ago, but July of this year, we're getting very close to today. Rebecca Ferguson joins Cillian Murphy in Peaky Blinders movie at Netflix. I'm not saying Rebecca Ferguson is the biggest star in the world, but she's big enough that she could ask for script changes on a project like this.
No.
And
he could, but she couldn't.
Right. So essentially, the Rey movie has lost its writer.
I am.
Yeah, and I'm also gonna throw in here that Barry Keoghan joined the cast of Peaky Blinders not that long ago either.
Jonas,
go ahead, Lou.
The deciding factor is, will their name open the picture? Will them being in it be the difference between a so-so opening day or a big opening day?
I'm not sure at this point. Obviously,
of all
Cillian
these
Murphy
people, Cillian, and this is a unique case because it's got a theoretically built-in recent audience. I say that because of all the 20 years later remakes that are done that are terrible, because the show is a big hit and people want to see more about what happens to those people. But still, as far as rewriting the script, I mean, there might be one scene where they say, I don't feel good about getting naked for that scene, or I don't feel good about the way this person explains themselves. My reading of the character is they would say more. And of course, on the set, there are those kinds of discussions with the director and the writer.
I don't know.
But,
I'm looking at these two right here. I mean, Cillian Murphy was obviously in Oppenheimer, but as far as female leads that are capable of holding their own in a production like this, I think she's the type that might ask for a couple of rewrites. And this guy right here, I think he thinks of himself as the kind of guy who would want a couple of rewrites. This from just August 29th, last month. Barry Keoghan also joining this. And now just earlier today, look who is doing press and doing some big media event out there in, the UK. Peaky Blinders, Stephen Knight to take the stage in London. He is so busy writing this Ray script, guys. It's in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, there's a couple of, I mean, gotta. Before I send it over, though, I wanted to change a couple of things on page 3. This movie doesn't exist at this point. I mean, the Ray movie, I think eventually
it's like Star
might
Wars
happen.
Just announced it for the credit.
Yeah. So I if
no,
this movie
no,
goes
no,
forward,
no,
I
no.
see
Wait a minute. Go down to that
circumstances.
second paragraph.
Okay.
The whole. So we
I
can
thought
see
I
the
was
whole
about to
thing.
get in trouble.
No. The industry will gather for an event that could signal a new normal after years of volatility. That's why this is happening. Everybody's looking around and saying, we went through the strikes, we went through COVID, and somehow things are not up and running like they used to be. What the hell? People from the Teamsters to the Stars are saying, I would have had 4 shows by now. What happened? And they're being told maybe never again. Maybe never again. And so this was a don't give up. Don't go into day trading. Don't move to the country. We really are going to have a real industry again. Honest, please, honest. And look, we've got David Beckham to be there. Yeah, so you got to look behind the names because all of this is coming from a press release who put this event on. So.
Mm-hmm. So the question I want to ask the panel here is which of 2 possibilities do we think is going to go on here? And it could be both, actually. Is Stephen Knight not going to be the writer of this when it finally hits theaters, or is this movie just never going to happen?
I think this is just another one.
Yeah,
it's another one they're throwing on the fire. It's going to go the way of Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron movie, the trilogy by Rian Johnson. There's been so many start and stops with this Lucasfilm, and right now I honestly think that they are, especially with the way the winds are blowing in Hollywood, with all the discourse that's already surrounding this movie, all the things that Charmin Obaid-Chinoy has said in the lead up to this movie, it's already got nuclear level heat on it because it was all it's about time for a woman to dictate all this. All her, I enjoy making men uncomfortable. I think that all of that has got the fempire running scared, and this movie is just never going to happen.
And it should have the accountant saying, if that's what it's about, as opposed to action, adventure, and romance in the galaxy far away, who's going to pay to see that? No. Nobody goes to a movie to be shown that women should be whatever.
Who watch The Acolyte, duh.
Yeah, all 12.
I'm going to make a theory because a lot of this, I think, depends on the longevity of Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm. I know it's been the meme for like the past, decade now, but you have to look at the reality of the situation is now stuff is really breaking through, especially on these reports and stuff like that. How much time do we have until, like, say, NBC or whoever drops a story on Kathleen Kennedy? We know stuff is probably going to be shown into the light with the Gina Carano situation going on. So you have to look at, I think the best theory I can see, because it's going to be all about legacy at this point. And I think the Mandalorian movie is probably going to be possibly the last hurrah for Kathleen Kennedy. I think what she's going to do is, because Rey is, I think, her baby in a way. It's been a reflection of how she probably perceives herself, just my own personal viewpoint on that. I think she's going to take this movie and somehow rework it into another movie. Like Rey will take a big part in possibly a future Star Wars project. And that will kind of be one of those like special credit to Kathleen Kennedy. I don't think this project will die because I think there's just too much investment.
Like written by whoever and then also written by Kathleen Kennedy for all of them. Like they always do with that credit.
They should just let Charmin
On the other hand, we saw what happened when it was revealed that why can't I think of her name like usual? From the Matrix was in the
Carrie
Acolyte.
Ann Moss.
Oh yeah,
And
Carrie
they
Ann
promoted
Moss.
and promoted and promoted and promoted. And what? She had about 10 minutes in the first episode, maybe 20.
Not even.
That's
So-
generous.
So,
That's
wait, but all right.
generous.
So what
That's probably
if
like 3 minutes?
What if
honestly.
when this movie finally happens, whatever
Mhm.
form and
Double feature with Ray and Blade that weekend. All right, we'll be there.
No. It's a galaxy and a time far away, and there's a flashback to her scene with her mother, played by Daisy Ridley, telling her how to be a good Jedi, and she worked for 5 days, and it was the Ray movie, all right. It just didn't have much Ray in it.
Now
the
that would
Spam
be
sketch,
now that
right?
would be something if they actually recast Daisy Ridley as a different actress. There was some rumor back
Would she
then
be
of
diverse?
Helen Mirren taking.
No, I'm
over
saying
the
they'll
role.
have her in it. It'll
She
be a
would
movie
have
about
to
her.
be.
And when she says it's going in a different direction more than I expected, it's called, yeah, you're not the star anymore. You're the cameo guest star. So
All I know is
Whoopi
the Kiss
Goldberg.
of Death. The Kiss of Death really was D23 that just occurred recently. The Ultimate Fan Effect, the entertainment panel, the Lucasfilm segment of that featured none of this. Did not feature the Ray movie. Didn't have Charmina
they would like
Bates
you to
come out on
forget about
stage.
it.
Yep. Zero.
Be
I mean,
pleasantly
they could have showed
surprised
some
when a
artwork. They
tiny-
could have shown something. They didn't show anything. That to me told me all I needed to know. This was never
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yep, that's very true. And Kathleen Kennedy, who was at D23, did not show up on stage until the third day for the Legends event. But with that, we probably should return to the pressing drama of the
Yes.
New York Times.
Oh, absolutely.
two.
But before we get to that, we have a super chat right here from Clive Griffiths. Thank you so much for your €5. Very much appreciated. Let's hope they don't spoil it with a movie like they did to The Last Kingdom. A great show. They worked the movie in. It was bad. Yeah, that's no good right there. Hopefully, whatever they do with the Ray movie is better than some of
Well,
the.
I think he's talking about Peaky Blinders.
Oh, Peaky Blinders. Oh, I
Oh
see.
yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah. Hopefully they don't ruin that show because it's got a lot of fans. That is for sure. Thank you so much, Jonas. Getting back to the drama here, we featured this a little bit on That Park Place. I want to go ahead and share it here because, well, we specialize in theme parks here, and well, as Lou pointed out, I think you made an interesting connection here, Lou, as to the power structure, the power dynamic that was taking place at this time in the company's history. Take your minds all the way back, folks, to March of 2020. Soon after Chapek is in the CEO role, well, on the way back from the annual shareholders meeting, says this: Governor Gavin Newsom called Iger before announcing that he would restrict public gatherings in California because of COVID, but he thought Disneyland might stay open. The governor didn't want people to panic, and he feared that they might if Disneyland were closed. Very interesting because, well, we'll explain the dynamic later on, but you'll recall that it was Gavin Newsom who kept Disneyland closed for the amount of time that it was closed. But it's interesting that the origins of this were actually Iger, who actually wanted it to be closed. Iger argued to Mr. Newsom that keeping the theme park open was a bad idea given the health risks to both guests and employees.
Oh my gosh. This
News-
just dawned on me for some reason. Sorry to interrupt you.
Please,
but,
please.
Lou, this is kind of like what so when you were talking earlier, Lou, about making the play for Pennsylvania Avenue, in my head, I was like, maybe I could see that sort of as just a general, that's what executives do. Kind of like that's what high school kids do. They go to college.
This is
that
never.
To me, this to me seems like politic. I'll tell
Yes.
Newsom,
Sure.
close
It's
down
never let us.
Disneyland. I'll get
Rahm
applauded.
Emanuel never let a crisis go to waste.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. That just dawned on me right now. So I'm on team. Yeah, he wants to be in the White House really bad. Lou team, whatever.
And
that is.
this was. We'll talk about the ramifications of this decision right here, but I think you're exactly right here, Spencer. I think this was optically not just for the company standpoint, but from his standpoint personally. He definitely didn't want the company to run afoul of the public perception at this point, because I think he really was considering a run for president at this time. Mr. Newsom later publicly praised Iger's advice and cooperation. Chapek didn't agree with the decision to close the parks, but he was furious that Iger had excluded him. The decision had nothing to do with Iger's creative mandate. Here's the thing, guys. The company at this point was still paying off not the debt, but the interest payments on that $70 billion acquisition of Fox. They were still paying the fees to set up Disney Plus, and obviously it wouldn't turn a profit for what, 4 years later.
And
the company. Go ahead.
What would eventually happen and how much with Hulu was caused by that acquisition of Fox.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Right. So yeah, the financials regarding that decision were still being
And
worked
still
out.
are.
And still are. That's true. So there's obviously more debt coming. And now on the precipice of Disney losing all of their theatrical distribution with theaters closed, I think Onward had come out at this point, just completely failed at the box office. So you're not going to get any of that revenue. And now the only source of revenue that you could actually get, the theme parks, are now going to be closed, not because you made that decision, but because Iger made that decision. And here's how devastating it was, folks, for the Walt Disney Company at this time. This was written by the Orange County Register, as you can see, but this was published in October of 2020. Remember, the Disneyland itself wouldn't open until April 30th of 2021. Okay, and already by this time, Disneyland Resort faces $2 billion revenue loss during this coronavirus closure. This is what analysts had estimated at the 216-day mark. Again, it wouldn't open until 412 days of its closure. And this wasn't just devastating for the company, as one could probably surmise here. It was also, and you can see actually, how devastating it actually was for the company right here with this announcement. Sorry, I do apologize. Let me see if I have my notes here.
But the short version is the whole city suffers because all the restaurants, hotels, gas stations, souvenir stands, hookers, everybody loses money when it's shut down.
well, that's. I mean, people got to. I guess they got to stand up for all the businesses.
Elsa, all right, let's be honest about Elsa at this point.
Oh man, that took a really interesting turn there. But
98 extra.
If you see right here. Okay, so it wouldn't just hurt the city. We'll get into the city ramifications.
Let's
remember,
just put it this way,
Spencer.
right, Spencer, this is for you. Disney is not the only party in Orange County, California, interested in happy endings. Anyway.
Oh boy. Well, unfortunately, there would be no amazing endings. Oh man, I'm trying to.
It's okay, Vash. Jonas is gone.
Bleach it up. Yeah, that's why I noticed. Yeah.
That's funny. It would be devastating to the company. In October of that year, actually near where that article was published that we just covered earlier, they announced via Josh Giamaro, a statement from him that they would be laying off 28,000 cast members, and the culture of the entire Disneyland Resort would never be the same again, and they wouldn't hire a lot of them back. I believe they only hired about 50% on average of those those amazing cast members back. A lot of them had been there for 10, 15, 20 years and so forth, really established the culture that was passed down lovingly from Walt. All of that would be cut severely short right there. But as Lou was pointing out there, the city's economic impact would be devastating, obviously. Disneyland had contributed at that point $8.5 billion to the economy of Anaheim, and now that's just shut off on a dime and had remained closed for, like I said, 412 days. Thousands of businesses suffered. I mean, tens of thousands of businesses suffered, many of them not returning. I believe there was a public works project that was being funded directly because of the Disneyland Resort to create affordable housing. That was put completely on hold. It would have devastating ramifications for the city of Anaheim and obviously, as we pointed out, the Walt Disney Company. And again, that was a decision that Bob Chapek himself couldn't make, even though he was apparently the CEO. So getting all the blame
became the heir only apparently.
Yes.
The heir errant.
Oh yeah.
If the king's not in charge, then who's the king?
Right. I mean, it's absolutely
At Disney. Simple answer, Nolan. The Queen. Anyway,
Also, the article also goes on about how he couldn't even decide to furlough 90,000 employees at the theme parks, given that these theme parks would remain closed for an undisclosed amount of time. I don't think until it was July that Walt Disney World even opened, and like I said, April 30th is when Disneyland opened. Iger overruled him on that decision as well, couldn't actually do anything, and apparently his wife, Chapek, anyway, might have actually gotten wind of this 2 months earlier when Chapek and Iger had appeared together on CNBC. Iger brushed aside a question about potential confusion for who was in charge. Bob is going to be running the company, Iger said. Oh, I'm sure. But now it seems that Chapek and Iger were acting as though nothing had changed. Iger was still chief executive in all but name. Chapek's wife told him he was little more than Mr. Iger's lapdog. Man, that is.
Don't want to hear that from your wife. Don't want to hear that from your wife. Ooh, devastating.
So bad, dude. That's so terrible. The lame duck CEO. Man, oh man, that is. Oh, that's rough. That's rough. But
so it's okay if she says it, but we can't say it.
yeah. Well, yeah. I think it is appropriate for her to say it. But I also wanted to highlight too just how despicable, really, the Igers, or I guess Iger and Bay, Willow Bay, are. You know what I'm saying? Because they really did some really terrible things, or said some really terrible things, while Chapek was still in power here. Let me just see if I can find my section here. Sorry, I do apologize.
When Chapek realized he was in power only and really didn't have the clout, he started singing, "I'm sitting by the dock of Willow Bay, wasting time."
It's crazy. This whole thing is absolutely nuts, and you'll see what I'm talking about right here, folks. The sections here starts out, Mr. Chapek canceled his trip. You'll note that around this time period of what's being outlined right here, not that one, this one, November 17, 2021, Disney CEO Bob Chapek pulled from Destination D23 appearance out of fear Disney fans would boo him. That was the speculation of the time, because obviously Chapek around this time was accruing a reputation that was not great for the parks, and
he was the boogeyman. He was the he was the author of all of Disney's atrocities. He was
yes.
They said in the Clone Wars, they said the reason General Grievous existed was to have a guy to pin everything on, or that's what Dooku thought. Dooku thought Grievous was the guy they were going to pin all the atrocities on, while he got to go on and be a part of the Empire. That's what Bob Chapek was.
Right.
He was a patsy.
And I'll
in other words, when Iger offered him the job, it's a trap.
I will say, though, for Chapek, that's probably the biggest thing that he actually learned from Bob Iger, that he did like how he does, just avoid having any audience in front of you and just manipulate, make it artificially look like you're good, and just avoid those boos. Now, if he just used some voice to speech or text to voice, he'd be all the way there.
Absolutely.
We gotta
100%.
wonder if this is the same reason why it was Dave Filoni instead of Kathleen Kennedy at D23 this year. Are they pulling the same thing here?
Exactly.
That's an interesting idea. That's the big speculation, right?
I fully believe that. Like, even though, yes, that is speculation, everybody, not a legally admissible statement, but at this point, Kathleen Kennedy has no credibility with anybody, whereas Dave Filoni, for some reason, still has some amount of clout with our zone of Star Wars fans.
They're already starting. Dave Filoni is the Bob Chapek here. They made him chief creative officer to be the fall guy. So, but that's another story.
Oh yeah,
for
sure.
Day.
Oh, absolutely. This is why Iger, by the way, earlier in our segment, he rushed out the door, seemingly just inexplicably. This guy had postponed retirement not once, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 6 times prior, on the eve of getting the Fox deal all arranged, on the eve of starting up Disney Plus, all these things, and then right when you got some trouble in China brewing, oh, I'm out, peace out. What?
The greatest leaders. Don't you hear about that in the history book? How the greatest leaders, when they were stuck with the face of adversity, they decided to stand by their man. Nah, I'm just going to book it for the mountains. I'm running out. Bye, everybody.
And You know, and if you listen to Bob when he would talk about these things where he was supposed to retire and would put it off, he always made it sound like it was some great sacrifice that he was making for the good of the company. Oh, well,
Yes.
if I must step back in, I'll do it. Yeah.
Oh,
like
yeah. So
it is, you know, it's not to make another Star Wars reference, but it was Palpatine getting the emergency powers, you know, forced on him, quote unquote.
yes,
Like,
it is.
I love democracy. These powers I will lay down when the crisis has been averted.
Absolutely. 100%.
You got to go back to Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, guys. 3 times they put the crown in front of me, and 3 times I put it aside.
There you
So,
go.
you know,
that's perfect right there.
Or something like that.
I know somebody who has.
But meanwhile, the one group that should have been thrilled with Chapek, go look at the stock price.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. We'll get into that in just a moment. I know somebody who has opinions on this matter. Indeed, Mr. Marty Snyder, what is going on right here?
How's it going, gentlemen?
Oh, pretty good. You remember this, Marty, right? Where the speculation was at the time that they pulled Chapek from Destination D on November 17, 2021, because they felt fans would boo him. This article outlines, well, there might have been an ulterior motive at work here, and I tend to favor this one. I don't know about you, Marty, but it would seem around this time Chapek was being outmaneuvered and subverted at every single point. He was losing control of not only the company but his rapport with the board and so forth. Marty, do you think he has to attend this retirement party at Iger's estate at this time, or convenient excuse?
Well, what was the whole idea on this was that he had to leave D23 to do Iger's retirement party, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No. I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to find out where this marionette is going. Like all the strings that are being pulled. Like I am not a fan of Chapek. I do feel like he ruined a lot of the park experiences for me. But the more stuff that comes out, it's like he was set up to fail 100%. You know, and Iger comes back in, and so there was a lot of stuff that was implemented for the parks under Chapek, under the umbrella of Chapek, the idea of Chapek, and Iger comes back, and he could have fixed a lot of this stuff, but he wanted Chapek to be the fault. A lot of these are his ideas, man. People don't realize, like Iger is the first one that implemented the reservation system with the Flex Pass. It's and what Max Pass. It's what he wanted, and but he didn't want to be the fall guy. I don't know that he always ever planned on coming back, but it was real easy once he sabotaged Chapek's run. And
I think that's important to remember with Chapek is, you know, when things came out when Chapek became CEO with the taking away the Magical Express and you know stuff like that, it was everybody was like, oh, Chapek's making this decision as CEO, and I'm like, no. Chapek made that decision as the head of parks before he became CEO. This is stuff that was already in motion. So Chapek's not blameless in these things, but it's not because he was the CEO. These were decisions made while he was head of the parks department. Well, not that he's.
And by the way, in that regard, Marvin, if you're going to bring on to the top level one of your ace VPs of one of your divisions in any company, and they have been open about the ideas they've got about how to increase revenue or whatever, it should be no surprise that it's actually going to happen when he gets the power to do it. That wasn't a shock to anybody up at the top of this company. They knew all that was coming along with him.
Well, Chapek was always been a numbers guy.
Yeah.
But then it was, you know, when Bob kicked the door back in and he waltzed back in as CEO, everybody kind of had this mentality of, oh, Bob is back, guys. Everything's gonna be great. He's like, I'm here to save everything. Did not reverse one single Chapek decision.
No.
Not one.
Over here, it was delusion and optimism, or more optimism that turned into delusion. Let's put it that way.
Over here on the West Coast, he gave us park hopping from 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock. I mean, I was talking to Dre earlier, and I was like, "You understand? Like, that? just giving us good to go dates as for APs would be an olive branch, you know." And but he won't even give us that. Like, as a local, me and my wife, you know, when we're off work, we can't just go to the park and have dinner and go ride a ride. Like we would ride one ride, but we're spending money on dinner and drink, and we can't even do that anymore.
Parking too.
Yep.
Well, that was like I always talk about that. In the day, I had some business and some friends in Orange County that I would go down to see middle of the day when traffic was already over in the morning, hang out with them in the afternoon, and I'd look at my watch and say, "Well, it's 3:30, 4:30. I'm not getting back to the west side till it's long dark at the traffic at this rate. I'm an annual pass. I'm going to go in and ride 2 rides, go over to the hotel and have a nice dinner, and then hit the freeway." It was easy.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
those were the days.
Yeah. Those were the days there. Well, unfortunately, around this time, Chapek is being blamed for the bad days. And, well, Willow Bay decides to join in on this whole madness as well. On November 19th, he arrived for the party at the same time as Thomas Schumacher, the longtime president of Disney's Broadway division. Thomas Schumacher also connected to the Disney Renaissance in a big, profound way, and was one of the brokers between John Lasseter and the Walt Disney Company at that time to get Pixar included for the lead up to Toy Story. Go ahead, Nolan.
Oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to say, when you pulled this back up, I saw Mr. Schumacher. I legit thought this might have been Joel Schumacher for a minute. I'm like, how did he get involved with this?
No.
The true mastermind.
Yeah, exactly. Miss Bay, Mr. Iger's wife, was outside greeting guests as they arrived. "Thomas Schumacher, it's been too long," she gushed. "I can't believe you came all this way." She embraced Mr. Schumacher. Chapek stood awkwardly by until she finally turned to him. "Hi, Bob. I see you all the time," she said. She turned back to Schumacher. "Oh, goodness gracious. That's how the evening starts, guys. That was the greeting." To this whole reception, which, by the way, this is
notice
the
how like the
retirement
writing
party for...
style of this paragraph moved away from the sort of like analytical that it was before, and now it reads sort of like the recap of a police report about a murder. Like that's how it feels like it begins to me. At 2:04, at 8:18, they entered the house. Miss whatever turned to the other one and said, "I see you here often." Then they made their way to the that's what something's about to go down.
As Marvin and I particularly have recent reason to recall, basic adage: better Mr. Schumacher than Miss Tessmacher, or vice versa. So we recently did Superman, for the genre guys. But anyway, bumpy night, and they show us a picture of the teacups.
It's gonna be bumpy. I guess you witnessed the exchange call to Bette Davis's memorable line in All About Eve.
Well, if you assume
it's gonna be a bumpy
both
night.
of these guys are trying to promote their dominance,
yes,
this could be the caucus race from Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. Oh, you're right about that. About 80 guests were seated at 3 long tables outdoors behind the house. Mr. Iger was flanked by Mr. Spielberg, Miss Lee of Disney Animation, that's Jennifer Lee, and Mr. Chapek was in the middle of the table farthest from Iger's. Okay, well, that's, power dynamics already seating and taking their place. Iger began his speech recognizing people who helped and inspired him. In one of his first jobs at ABC, Iger had worked as an assistant to the acclaimed sportscaster Al Michaels, which, by the way, why is Al Michaels there? Well, not only was he profound in the establishment of ESPN, but as part of a deal to get back Oswald the Lucky Rabbit.
What a trade.
they trade Al Michaels to Comcast for it. That is so wild. It's such a crazy story, but Michael's
We'd like
still
to trade our all-star sportscaster for 2 animated characters to be named later.
And then we won't even do anything with them.
Oh, that's the worst thing as well, Spencer. Dang it, Bob. Iger mentioned that back in the day, he and Mr. Michaels had covered dirt track racing in Indiana. Terre Haute. Terre Haute. Sorry.
The joke in my family is it's all the way out to Terre Haute. It's like a line from A Christmas Story. Yeah. So
Terre Haute,
I love seeing the representation right here for Terre Haute.
Well, yeah, I like seeing it too. Until
tall or high. So that's where the name comes from, is French.
Oh, gotcha.
Mountain, basically.
I learned something new
for
today.
The wild world of sports. Iger looked toward Chapek and went off script. That's your area, isn't it, Bob? He asked, referring to Terre Haute in rural southwestern Indiana. You know all about those dirt tracks. Mr. Chapek's hometown of Hammond is near Chicago. He seethed at what he felt was a put down.
Oh
yeah,
mean girls.
it absolutely
Oh my
was.
god.
He felt? How many here feel with him? Of course it was a put down.
Absolutely.
When did this transition to a novel? Like this sounds like a bestseller right here.
That's what I was saying. Something is about to go down. We're about to all like lose our minds.
Let's put it this way.
In 4 paragraphs.
If they made a movie of this, it would sell more tickets than Captain America is going to do.
This is just, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, I was just making a joke to Luke. He said more tickets than Captain America, and I said, what, 5?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
You know, it reminds me
At
of...
the very least, it should be a nighttime soap, like Dallas or something.
Yeah,
it's that kind of story,
I think HBO back in the day did a show of self-made movie on the struggles for the Tonight Show, with Jay Leno. And there was reports that Jay Leno hid in a closet while David Letterman was having his meeting so he could get information. This sounds exactly like so much of that with the backstabbing and all the workings on the outside. I mean, it's just crazy.
I mean, it's just, to me, it's insane that you would treat somebody like that, especially given the context, the setting. I mean, this is with bigwigs all over Hollywood, all the people that, Chapek would assumingly have to earn a rapport with later. I mean, just the ultimate put down right here by Bob Iger. Iger pushed on, worked his way through his career thanking people, and then paused when he reached the present. I think I'll just stop right there. He says, "Thank you all for coming." There was no such praise, no further mention of Chapek. Chapek reddened as he felt every gaze turn on him. He stood up and stalked out. Oh,
what a petty child Iger is.
What is happening here?
That
you're missing something, guys. Yeah, it's petty and it's stupid and it's childish, and he knew his audience was for him. He wouldn't have done that if he hadn't already read the room and invited the people in a way that he had planned this all in advance and knew that he could send the signal. If you have business with Disney, even though his name is on the front door, mine's on the door upstairs with the shower, call me. This was a calculated thing.
Yeah, I mean,
so
complete neutery.
If you get down to the basics of it, Chapek's being brought up should be the most important decision Iger ever made, to make sure that the company was in good hands. And and by doing this, not only is he's undermining, he knows he's undermining his own critical decision, the most important decision, which is a transition to make sure the company is good for years to come. But he sat there, he had to go and lay the groundwork to cover that so that people don't look at him like that. That there won't be the critical opinions on him for the most important decision he was supposed to make, which is, the transition.
It's the answer to the inevitable question of why did you pick this putz if things go bad? And why would he care? Because he still thinks 1600 Pennsylvania is in his future.
Now that I think about it, maybe he should have attended Destination D on that day, because, maybe the booze might be fielded a little bit better than that.
Or a reality check.
Yeah, and this isn't the only instance of Iger acting like a complete child right here, and just so uncalled for, so immature. There's an instance in which go ahead.
But if that's immaturity, Hollywood's kindergarten. They're all buying it.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to realize. He doesn't see it that way. He sees it as, I'm the snarkiest snark of you all. Ha, ha, ha. Aren't I wonderful?
And his wife joins into the fray. That's just, it's
also
terrible.
Comes out of TV news.
There's a story here.
I could tell you guys about people in TV news. Oh.
Well,
I think we got a new episode of Hollywood Backlot with Lou.
Well, no, but I was involved just briefly. I was involved in a show that was shooting overseas and that was international in nature and was live and was 1 hour around the world going live. And we had a discussion because we had people in many cities around the world contributing live. What happens if some terrorist or some crook or somebody, knowing this is a free platform to show your complaints to the world, shows up with guns at one of these locations, takes over the show? Do you leave them on or take them off? And now I don't know what any of you think. My instant reaction is, of course you take them off. Of course you pull the switch. Of course you keep them from using you as a way of. But all these serious TV news people that I was working with on this, I don't know. You have to consider the sensitivities of the local this and and it's like they don't think like we do. They don't think like, never mind politics or left and right. They don't think like human beings because they're about the big issue and what somebody's going to say about them afterwards, not about the actual what's going on at that moment. They just don't live in the same world. So
they don't.
There's that.
As outlined right here with the story, this is the one we'll leave it with right here before switching to our next segment. By early October, after a 2-hour meeting at Iger's house, this was over the DMED thing, or Disney Media and Entertainment Division. This was kind of Chapek's plan of reinventing the Walt Disney Company and doing something about the cultural rot that had infested the company at this point by taking some power away from the creatives. Iger obviously wasn't a fan of it, but they had a meeting about this at Iger's house. Chapek thought he'd gotten Iger's blessing. He was in his car heading back to Westlake Village when Bergman called him. Iger just told me we're not going to do the reorganization to DMED. Bergman said, according to Chapek, he said he hates it. Chapek was dumbfounded. He'd left Iger just 10 minutes earlier. No, it's on. We're doing it, Chapek replied. Chapek said he immediately called Iger and asked if he'd said that to Bergman. Iger says, yes, I hate it. Chapek's like, why didn't you say that to me at the time? Like, I was at your house for 2 hours. Iger didn't answer. Isn't that wild? It's just a crazy way.
So petty. Good gosh.
It's
like watching.
Wait, what did he ask him the question? He just sat there in silence. How did he just?
Yeah, he just sat there in silence.
Didn't answer your drum, I guess. I don't know.
Sorry, Chapek.
Now
I got a third shower I got to do. Take.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's
Go
my
ahead,
question to you guys.
Mhm.
We mentioned before that this reads like a Dallas or Dynasty or one of those nighttime soap where everybody's out to or Yellowstone now, If you took this and saw it as a totally fictional presentation on TV, would you buy it? Would you as an audience believe that these people, because you certainly do with those other shows, as much as they're exaggerated, as much as they're vile and nasty and do all these dirty tricks, you buy them because the performers are selling it and the writers are writing it in such a way that you say, in alternate universe number 432, yeah, I could see this really happening.
Well,
but nobody reading this story is sitting there going, you mean it really does happen that way with this outfit?
Like, with that Tonight Show movie that HBO did, if they in 5 years did a documentary based on the struggle that happened during these 2-3 years, from COVID on, I'd watch that in a second. I would watch that in a second.
I would like there to be an award show going on that cites the hippo scene. I'd love that to be an Oscar nominee scene for an actor. That would be the ultimate icing on the cake.
And furthermore,
he comes off like
remember,
Mr. Burns.
If this is a 2-hour TV movie or something, or a 2-part special, just like I talk about, it's not selling tickets as far as Acolyte, it's getting subscriptions. The entire point of that script and of the shooting of it and the directing of it and the performing of it is to get you to come back after the next commercial. Right. Is to keep you interested. It's not to make you say, this is hilarious and strange and bizarre and weird, and I've had enough. I'm tired of all these hold my beer moments for venality. It's like, but
hey, I'm calling it, man. Run it on the Peacock.
Yeah. That's a good point right there. That's for sure. This is definitely maybe perhaps a movie or a series in the making. Hey, it could be just called C-Suite. Make it simple. This has a lot of drama, folks, and we've only really scratched the surface here. That is,
I think Universal.
Sure.
I think Universal needs to get a lot more petty. In its form.
yeah.
Now's the time to do it,
I
man.
agree.
Next year,
I'm pretty
they should make this as a movie. Next year at Halloween Horror Nights, one of the houses should be Blood and Honey. Like,
Great stuff.
just go all the way.
Please name the movie 2 Shower Days, though. That's my only criteria.
Yeah.
No.
A shower of a lifetime.
Ooh, no. Après moi le déluge.
Oh, we're gonna make it
Says what?
fancy.
Well, but that in French,
Yes,
that's
yeah,
what what's it,
after the
Napoleon
best.
said, or Louis the 14th. After me, the flood. In other words, after I'm gone, it's the end of civilization as we know it. Well,
That's a fair
isn't
point.
that what Iger's saying? If after me, who cares? Unfortunately,
There's definitely that
a lot of people
complex.
who do care. Anyway,
Well,
Mickey Mouse is collateral damage to these guys. Star Wars is collateral damage.
He's not wrong.
Shower Thoughts, the movie. That's so funny. By the way, we do have a meme here as presented by one of our amazing, what do you want to say, supporters of the channel. Let me see if I can actually get it right here. Well, I just had it. And now I don't have it anymore.
Watchers.
Well, while I bring it up, I want to go ahead and give a big shout out to Marvin, the Movie Monster. I know you have a show tonight on Toontown Wrestling that you have to make preparations for. I just want to make sure that we have the time in order to commend you for all your contributions, not just to your channels, but to the That Park Place Network. Marvin, why don't you go ahead and tell people where they can find you?
Oh, thank you so much. I'd love to stay longer, but I have to I have to write and film a whole cold open for the stream tonight, which is going to feature the puppets and all that stuff. So yeah, you can check me out over at Toontown TV. That's our TV and movies channel, which we have daily content going on over there. Toontown Wrestling also. We're trying to get to the point with daily content over there. Right now, it's probably about 5 days a week. And on Tuesday nights we have our Toonie Talk Wrestling live stream. On Thursday nights we have Toonie Talk TV, which is our TV and movie live stream. We'd love to have you guys over there as well. We have a great time over there. And of course, you can always catch me over on That Park Place, where I am the theme park reporter for That Park Place. So come check out. We just did a great story on the fact that it might be the animation courtyard and not Muppet Vision that is going to be up on the chopping block for Monsters Incorporated. So go check that out, folks. And we'll be happy to bring you more of the theme park news. But yeah, please come join us over on the channels.
And by the way, you're getting Marvin, who's marvelous. What you don't know if you haven't been there is you get an extra special bonus, and that's Mr. Apollo, who is his aide and amanuensis sidekick, Sage,
Kevin
and Bear,
yeah,
and he's fantastic. He's just fantastic.
He really is. He really is. He deserves to be a lot more places than he is. Oh yeah, no, he's been my best friend for 20 years. So we have a great rapport, and he's on both Toonie Talk Wrestling and Toonie Talk TV as my co-host. So yeah, come check it out. And he's also doing exclusive videos for Toontown TV members now. So just him.
Oh
yeah.
Well, that is fantastic. Well, you
finally
can
a reason
into,
to watch the channel.
Right.
D-Bud Martin and myself, we have links to all of Marvin's stuff in the chat right now. You can go ahead and follow that if you're looking for more Marvin the Movie Monster, an amazing writer, but also too an amazing content creator in general. So thank you so much, Marvin, for joining us on here. It was a lot of fun.
My pleasure.
Thank you. We also have some amazing super chats from some of our people watching right here. Let's go ahead and get to them as well. Amazing. Thank you so much, Neil. 89, very much appreciated. $10, very much appreciated. Well, toddlers are often proud of the big stuff that they take. Yes, that's correct. So Iger's pride about taking a big Disney stock implosion makes sense. I'm sure he feels like a big boy now. Yeah, that is. I think that's an accurate description right there because they're acting like children. Come on, the whole. It's so petty. It's so. It's just terrible. But thank you so much, Tino, for your 10 super chat as well. That's most appreciated. Kiss my grits with $49. Thank you so much, KMG, an amazing contributor. Not just in the way of super chats, but just in information gathering and obviously his experiences. It's just invaluable. So thank you so much, KMG. Very much appreciated.
I posit this as a potential conspiracy theory answer to your question. They want something to distract from tonight's festivities in the political arena.
That might be the case. I remember, Lou, you were talking about that. This New York Times exclusive basically plagiarizes Alex Sherman's CNBC exclusive from a year ago. I'm not going to say that that's necessarily wrong there. Is it somebody maybe possibly putting their name on someone else's homework? So my question is,
what they did was they changed one or two answers.
There you go. You see,
but
please.
The new headline tonight. I know we're not politics, but Kamala Harris put out her policy page finally, just before the debate. Somebody has looked into the source code and found that big parts of it were taken directly from Biden's campaign page.
Ooh.
How's that for an interesting bit of plagiarism? Don't forget the source code, all you future plagiarists.
I don't know, that seems normal.
KMG asks, why resurface the same story now? As Lou has answered right there. This reeks of internal sabotage for someone at Disney C-suite or even the board, but again, why now? You know, this article actually does make reference to Chapek and how he actually, or at least may have at one time, considered suing the Walt Disney Company, got his own legal representation and so forth. I believe Walt Disney World News Today actually ran a story about that specific thing right here. Let's see if I can put that on screen. Bob Chapek says his children and grandchildren being a Disney family stopped him from suing the company. We'll have more details on that in further coverage here, both on T3PO and that part plays. But,
that's right. That and that he's probably also subscribed to Disney Plus.
I see. that's a fair point. Yeah, you got arbitration only.
You signed the deal. You signed the contract.
That's it. Blue. It was in blue font. In case you didn't know, I did actually find the what we alluded to before right there. Bob Iger, the Brett Favre Hollywood CEO.
Did you make that?
No, it was actually reply by mail. Reply by mail putting out some great stuff.
By the way, in Hollywood history,
yes,
you do know that Louis B. Mayer, the biggest mogul of them all, was fired by the corporate entity above him. He wasn't really the boss. He was the studio boss, but not the company boss. And after a while in the 50s, they said, too old, can't cut it. Bye-bye. So
very interesting. Very interesting.
It kind of reminds me, you remember that scene in Patton where he voiceover, he talks about the Roman conquerors would come back to Rome in what's called a tribute, and they'd be driven in a golden chariot with their captured slaves before them, and behind them would stand a slave holding a golden laurel wreath over their head and whispering in their ear that all glory is fleeting. Bob doesn't have one of those. Bob doesn't have one of those.
Indeed. Thank you so much, KMG, for the $50 super chat. Very much appreciated for sure. And all your great insight as well. Tanil89, again, with that 10 super chat. Thank you so much for those $5. The great goof toilet paper shortage of 2020. Yes, I see. Will be a spooky story told around campfire for years to come and probably receive a Broadway production. Yes, indeed. And also, too, again, with another $5. Tanil89.
Let's see. Well, I can't think of anything.
Still waiting for Marvin to open a segment.
Stores, though, I think some of the retail stores at the time still had some paper available. I think it was sandpaper, but it was still paper.
Yeah, that's, well, any port in a storm, I guess. Tennille89 with another $5. Still waiting for Marvin to open a segment with Master of
Any
Puppets
pot
on the
in a
nose.
storm.
Oh, it may be.
Uh,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You know what? I'm going to send this over to Tennille89 to Marvin himself. He might know about it, but I kind of want a reason as to why he may have not done it yet. Because it feels so obvious and so true to the character.
Maybe he's afraid of
Marvin, the
Floral.
monster. Maybe, possibly. But you know who isn't afraid of anybody? Well, it's Marty actually, and I invited Marty on here because first of all I just love his insight on just about everything theme parks, especially in regards to Disneyland, which is that's your neck of the woods, isn't that, Marty? No. It's a bad
A
joke.
couple times a week.
Yeah, exactly. A reference to earlier, but no, I invited you, Marty, because I know not only do you have experience with this specific topic, but you were the one actually who illuminated me to this article even existing in the first place. It didn't actually find my radar, so I want to thank you personally, and I think our viewers here will thank you as well for bringing this to light, because this is a very important story, I think. Here you go. Los Angeles Times. Disneyland fans with disabilities enraged by changes. We had the worst day ever there. So the fallout from the DAS, or Disability Access Service, changes are in full effect right now, and you have people who are having a hard time of it. And so I'll read a little bit here, and I'm going to hand it off to you, Marty, because I think this is fascinating. Less than 2 hours after being dropped off at the most magical place on Earth. It's the happiest place on Earth, but that's fair. Florida resident Paula Roland cheerfully called her husband to take her and their son Noah home. It was actually the Magic Kingdom. Oh, sorry. That June 5th was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience at Disney World's Magic Kingdom. But days earlier, Noah, a non-verbal autistic child with sensory processing disorder, had been denied Disney's Disability Access Service, or DAS. The 8-year-old struggles to stand in line for more than 15 minutes, and the pass would have provided him with shorter wait times at attractions. Shortly after entering Disney World and attempting to wait in line with his family, Noah suffered an autistic meltdown, an involuntary and intensely emotional response to an overwhelming situation. He spent most of his time at the park being soothed by his mother inside a gift shop. It's hard to come back from that point, Roland said. We had the worst day ever there. And this article, which will include segments of this in our coverage here today, goes on to outline many depressing experiences that people have had, and just the outrageous behavior from the Walt Disney Company in response to their concerns. Marty, I know you visited recently. You don't have to go into the details of that visit if you don't want to. No, but I know you had some personal experience.
I'm comfortable with it.
Please.
We recently stayed 3 nights at the Grand California Villas, and it was very, very, very expensive. Like for the stay, for the room we had, and we went with family members, and there was a member of our group who, the reason why we were mostly doing this is it's likely the last time they'll be able to visit the parks, and it's because they're suffering from late stages of Parkinson's, and it's very hard to maneuver the parks with a lot of people like in a wheelchair, let alone standing or for long periods of time or any of that. And anyone who knows anything about Parkinson's, it's like Alzheimer's on steroids in a sense, because it affects your body as well as your mind, and it's a really difficult thing to have to deal with, and it has its moments here and there. Sometimes they're better, sometimes they're worse. We waited for an hour in the 90-degree heat to talk to a person about DAS at the front gate, at the kiosks that are out there. Or anyone that doesn't know, they're doing it where the ticket booths used to be. So you're out there, you're exposed, and it was an hour wait. We got there and explained the situation to a 19, 20-year-old cast member, probably still taking 101 classes at a JC, and had to explain to them, the problems that medically, physically limit you with this particular problem. And in 20 minutes we were denied, and they recommended to us that we get Lightning Lane. And I told the cast member, I said, would you look at this individual? We are not going on Big Thunder. We're not going on Space Mountain. They can't handle it. We're not going on Rise of the Resistance is too jerky. Like, not that you could do, well, I guess you could under DAS. But, you know, like a lot of these things, Matterhorn, they wanted to go on Fantasyland rides, you know, Peter Pan, the things that they grew up on, that they loved. And those rides are not ADA compliant as far as, like, you cannot, they like to say, oh, you're in a wheelchair, run them through, you know, they can stay in the wheelchair until you get to the end. Wheelchairs don't fit in those lines. They just don't, they're too tight spaced. You can't make the turns. And I was just, you know, it blew my mind. I was like we all know the young lady who did a video about her being denied with the oxygen tank and stuff. And if it's not for these type of people, who is it for? And I'm not going to at all say it on this platform or any platform, but I've become aware of absolute loopholes that you can use with one scenario and you get DAS. And my problem is the people who they wanted to stop taking advantage of it are always going to take advantage of it. They're going to find a way. It's the Death Star. You give them a blueprint, they're going to find the weakness. And they have found, like, people are taking advantage of this, and all you've done is you've alienated the people who really have issues that need this service. And now that was this individual's last time going to the park, probably. And we were there. We had a 2-story villa, 3 bedrooms, 4 balconies, and in 3 days we went on 5 rides.
Can we go back to laughing about Iger? This is heartbreakingly depressing.
This is what is so frustrating about these companies. They act like how inclusive they are, but yet these people just get left on the roadside like they don't care about them. That's disgusting and pathetic. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Putting aside the horrible lack of compassion involved and the lack of concern and the lack of hospitality involved on a purely financial basis. If you folks have any idea what just the hotel part of that trip cost Marty and his family, and the fact that A, they will never do it again, and B, everybody who hears the story will think 3 times about doing it again. That's terrible. Well,
I don't want to put you on the spot there, Marty, but
you
share this on Twitter. And
this was the best part of our trip. Like, this is where we would go back so that she could, the individual could cool off, and that we could relax as a family when we couldn't be in the park, you know, because of the situation. It's crazy, man. The cast member, first of all, these are CMs, and they're some of them are very young. There's no medical criteria that they have trained, that they're really trained for, to sit there and make decisions on what certain things are. I'm having to explain what Parkinson's can do. And one of the responses I got back during this 20-minute conversation was, oh, is that what Michael J. Fox has?
Oh.
And so I'm like, so that's your knowledge on this particular disease. I'm telling you, whatever you're struggling with, when you go there to that gate, you know, or to that ticket booth, you know more, you've struggled more with that disability than they even read a paragraph on, and they're making the call on it, on whether or not it's appropriate or not.
And didn't they say they were going to have medical professionals that were going to assist these cast members in making these decisions? Have you seen that at all?
Well, no. Well, I didn't see that in any of my, I was there for an hour. I didn't see any second opinion. It's
Sooner or later, somebody's going to go undercover in the training and come out and show pictures of bosses saying, when in doubt, tell them no, we don't want to do that.
And I get they're behind an 8 ball in the way they do this, in that HIPAA laws are there. And, that's why some other parks go with a third party, let them decide it, and keep that information separate. I'm of the belief that Disney, if they did go with third party, would still want the information given back to them. And that's where the HIPAA violation, when you start transferring information from one that you received back to Disney. And
then a month later, you read a story in the newspaper about some hack that compromised all that information somehow.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. To me, it was super frustrating. And again, I was like, it's who is it for if it's not for people like that young woman that made the video, and like the person I was with?
And what about people who are the members of the family of the person with the affliction, who maybe they haven't got long to live? Maybe they haven't got long to do anything. And someday, 10 or 20 years from now, they can say, gosh, I still remember that wonderful day we had with Grandma at Disneyland. Remember when we went and they were so nice and we got to get ahead of the rides and make it comfortable for her and give her a great memory, and a great memory to last all of our lives? That's all going to go away. And folks, let me tell you that
sounds like it already has, honestly.
It's worse than you think. The folks backstage, Vash and Pro and Jonas and everybody, have been working on a story. The story has not been released yet because we all wanted to make sure that we verified every detail. I am now informed, literally while we've been talking, by Pro, that story is coming out tomorrow. Meanwhile, when I heard about it 3 or 4 days ago, it made me incensed, because it wasn't just about the kind of thing Marty's talking about. It was about actions similar regarding disabled people that could have meant losing somebody's life, that could have meant serious injury of relatively healthy but disabled people, because the cast members were trained in a way that I can't even imagine. Now, I still cannot give you the details until it formally comes out. But 3 days ago, I got so angry about it, I wrote a piece for that park place and sent it off to John Trent. And we all decided, well, we better hold on to it for a day or two because the piece approaches it obliquely without the specific story in it. But it's something to look for on that park place tomorrow. You will see my story. And if it's gonna show you, the specifics are awful enough, but what it says in a broader sense about what they call management
Right.
At Disney nowadays, and it's just plain shockingly, dangerously horrible. And the article is entitled, "How Bad Is It? This Bad, When Good Enough Management is Not Good Enough." So look for that on that park place tomorrow. Thanks.
And if you're watching a highlight of this show, the link to that will be in the description. How about that, Lou?
Oh, right. And it'll be out on the 11th.
Right.
Okay. And Pro just literally let me know backstage while we were going through this. So that's why I'm breaking into your story.
Absolutely.
With this
one,
no
problem.
If you have a pulse, it will curl your hair. What they did to these people. Shocking.
And we know why the company makes decisions like this. I mean, a lot of it is for profit and revenue. I mean, even in the Los Angeles Times article, they say they offer Lightning Lane as an alternative. But like Marty pointed out, the Fantasyland attractions at Disneyland aren't on the Lightning Lane service. So even the people who could necessarily afford that service to be added on to their day at Disneyland, well, that is not a end all be all, but that's how they're kind of pitching it here. And we know that this is one of the reasons why they did this whole DAS reimagining in the first place. As actually Disneyland News Today or Walt Disney World News Today pointed out, Disney data breach included Disneyland guest information, Genie Plus revenue details. This by Shannon Ace, September 5th, 2024. This goes on the Wall Street Journal article that outlined so many things that were revealed with that big, whole, huge data breach. But actually, it says right about here, another spreadsheet details revenue from Disney Genie Plus, now known as the Lightning Lane Multi-Pass. According to the file, Genie Plus at Walt Disney World generated over $724 million in pre-tax revenue between its October 2021 launch and June 2024 launch. They are beholden to that revenue stream, and any attack or what they perceive to be an attack on that by perhaps abusing the DAS service, well, that just couldn't be. That just couldn't. That couldn't stand, and so that's why they reimagined the service.
Especially when their overall attendance is so far down.
That's true. Yes, so you have to be, squeezing that stone for more blood. Go ahead, Marty.
Think about how flawed it was that you ruined an IP, and 2 years into it, you just had to rebrand the whole thing, because not only did you ruin Genie, like is any part goer gonna look at the Genie ever the same again? And then like you messed it up so bad that you had to just like rebrand the whole thing. We're in the middle of planning a trip to Disney World, and we're going in November. We've been doing this for 9 months, and I know it like the back of my head, inside out, all this stuff. I've had to learn like 3 different variants of the fast pass in order to, like, when I go there, or how I'm going to use it. And we're staying at the boardwalk, so different rules apply to us there. There's a lot of stuff that's just like, and I'm sitting there going like, holy cow, man, wasn't this all for Colorado family? What are they doing? There's no way they can navigate
confused.
this.
And how does it feel, progressively seeing the fast pass system get worse and worse? Genie Plus was an abomination.
Yeah.
And you got to keep your nose in your phone. What would Walt have said about that? No. Forget.
I mean, look at the virtual queues. They released Tron. I was told Tron was going to be a 3-hour wait.
Nope.
If they got rid of virtual queue.
Today.
Yeah, exactly.
30 minutes. And really, that's for what is it? A minute and a half of ride, or however short that is?
Yeah.
Very short.
And I mean, oh, God.
Anything
that makes it more difficult for you to spend money and have a good time is wrong. Period. End of story. If they can't master that simple little fact of management, but put it this way, and this is kind of what I do in the article. What if it wasn't Walt Disney? What if it's Joe's? What if it's the real world equivalent of Dino Land out on Route 66 someplace? And you pulled up in your car and the kids are tired and it's been a hot day and you want to spend an hour or two eating cotton candy and riding the flat rides. And they say, that's great. First, you'll have to fill out this form. And second of all, you have to check your phone for an opening. And third of all, if you want to ride the good rides, we're going to charge you double. Have a great day.
These people would charge you to breathe if they could. That's why they want you on all of the subscription plans. They want to trick you into spending money. It's the used car salesman mentality.
And I also don't feel like this is just like 100% money coming in. You're taking money for the left pocket, you put in the right. Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yep.
People are spending less on other stuff, and so that they can pay for their Lightning Lane. You're selling less ice cream, you're selling less popcorn, you're selling less things, and those things, those things are cheaply made. You have a high profit margin on it, and you don't get a bad guest relationship or experience based off of that happening.
Yeah. There's no free money. It's coming from somewhere, like you said, Marty, but the real payment being paid by the Walt Disney Company to be pushing a product like this in the way that they are is goodwill. It's just taking a tremendous dump.
And let's remember
the months that they've implemented this.
The big selling point for the cruise lines, for all cruise lines, was going in what it's going to cost, because your food, your entertainment, your transportation to and from the airport, your everything is all in one price. Well, take that apart. And what does it cost you when somebody is saying, well, I think it'd be great to get the kids and the grandkids and go down to Disney World for a week and then take a 8-day cruise to Castaway Cay. But we can't do both. Which one should we do? So that's why I've been saying, when they've been touting that, the cruise lines are doing strong. How much are the cruise lines cannibalizing from the parks and the hotels to where people might have done a week of a 3-day cruise and a 4-day stay, as opposed to, we can't do both anymore. Have to pick one.
I think it's funny that everybody was upset about Lightning Lane multipass, and granted, you should be. But they announced a skip the Lightning Lane. Like
yes, the premier pass.
People were like, thank God they're raising the price. It's going to be $150. There won't be so many people. No, now Lightning Lane gets skipped.
They should just open up a duplicate Disneyland right next to Disneyland. Same with Magic Kingdom. Like at this point, what are they doing? What's the end game here?
I know what you call it.
Like flipping $50
the one without the lightning lanes and all the goodies. You call it Disneyland Light, Lite.
Yes.
Oh my
Disney
God.
Light, Disneyland. Oh my goodness
The
gracious.
Disneyland experience.
And I don't care how many people, and it's true, and I feel this way too, say that one of the great things of going to the parks, maybe not anymore, but certainly in the heyday, was just being there and just walking around and feeling the atmosphere and seeing the wonderful landscaping and the lighting and the parade, and you didn't even have to go on a ride to have a good time. Okay, swell. That's what you're paying for. You want anything else? We're going to go back to the ticket books, but the tickets are not going to be 75 cents and $1.25. They're going to be $50 and $75 if you want to yo-ho with the pirates.
Well, Lou, now if I was to go to Disneyland today and not want to spend any money and just kind of walk around, my sites would include scaffolding, walls, scrim.
Exactly.
The whole, basically
and
everything from Haunted Mansion on is broke or down.
It gives a whole new meaning to that phrase that of the color they paint the construction walls of go away green. What it means is if you see this green, go away.
Well, I kind of forgot, like with my family member who had Parkinson's. The one thing I was like, well, you know what? We'll be able to do let's just go on the railroad, and I forgot the railroad was closed. Like so I'm like, we can't even go around the park on the railroad because we wanted to show them Toontown, and that's a long way to walk, man. That's the whole flat side of the park.
All the assistance cart or whatever, and they just cart you around all day, and there's the ride. Isn't this so exciting?
Were the trolleys at least working?
The trolleys were working, but
not for long.
This individual wouldn't have been able to get up the steps for that, so that wouldn't have worked for us in our situation. It was, get in the wheelchair. We'll take you all the way back so that you can see the area and stuff like that. But
and no more Skyway, and no more. I mean,
I think the monorail's down right now too, or at least it was.
Seriously? I think so, yeah. We covered this a little bit, Nolan, on that Park Place, but there was a tremendous amount of things that are down right now around this time period, August and September, in the lead up to the holidays.
Well, up until I don't know, a week and a half ago, it was all of Critter Country. It was the train. It was Space Mountain. It was the monorail. It was Hungry Bear. It was
Space Mountain.
Don't you think the ticket price should reflect how many things are operational at the time?
I would think
this is Nolan. This has been a beef of mine in a different arena for decades. Broadway shows, when they tour to fix the show before they're going to open on Broadway, what they used to call opening it out of town, and they would play Pennsylvania and Connecticut and up and down the East Coast for a couple of months to refine numbers. And do we want to keep this number? And maybe we'll change those two things. But they charge you full boat.
Makes no sense.
Pay us full price to help us fix our show so we can charge even more full price when it opens someday.
Even over here on the West Coast, we shut down the monorail during the summer after like 11 o'clock because it doesn't have air conditioning, and if it breaks down, people are sweating uncontrolled. Like there's it's just so hot in there that they can't take the risk of it stopping in. I mean, right now I am surrounded by 3 wildfires within 30 miles of my house. I can't go outside. It's just like it looks like the apocalypse. Over here in Chino Hills, we've been dealing with 4 days of 113 degree heat, and I'm only 20 minutes away from Disneyland. Yesterday, if you looked at the app, everything was a 5-minute wait because the air quality is garbage. And in Anaheim, it's 100 degrees.
Yes, in Anaheim, it's 100 degrees recently. The Mark V monorails that were part of the Disneyland line had air conditioning. The Mark 7s, the current line, does not. And
why did they backscale that? That makes no sense.
Because you're not running those motors and spending that electricity.
Right. You're
not having one more gizmo you have to maintain.
It's cheaper than a wrongful death suit or 7.
Well, you just don't run them. So now you have an excuse not to run this attraction as
You
well.
don't have to staff it.
There you go.
And if you don't have to staff it, you don't have to overtime. And if you can, there was one, I forget which park. I think it was Animal Kingdom. And Lorena was doing one of her wonderful walkthroughs. And it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. And 2 or 3 of the biggest rides hadn't opened. And they told them it was maintenance, but we thought about it and decided, if you open the park at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, but you don't open the following 6 attractions till noon, you can get 1 shift instead of 2 to cover that day when they don't close too late. Well, that's a big deal on a weekly, annualized basis.
Sure.
And that's the game they're playing. Sorry, it broke. And then, of course, we have the real ones that never get unfixed. I mean, you were talking before about Tron, and I keep saying when they decided, well, COVID, we better slow down or stop the construction for a while because we're not going to be able to open it for a while. We don't know when, and why should we spend that money to have it sitting there? Why? Because when you take 6 years to build something that is direct duplicate of something you've already built overseas, by the way, instead of the 4 years you were going to, guess what? Everything's more expensive. Every little piece of wood, every little bushing, every little everything. And, what are you saving by having it not ready when the people come back?
I mean, they're just pushing it to quarter, and it makes the quarter look
And
good.
what that tells you is that the people in charge of these decisions are basically getting their performance bonuses and their work evaluations done quarter to quarter. So if they can say, I saved you 12 cents between last quarter and this quarter, they're still there.
But that's the thing, Lou. That's the thing, Lou. It's so many people, and this has been a problem with the Walt Disney Company for years, but really has been profoundly affecting the parks recently, and the entire company for that matter. There's so many people within Disney right now who are just using the company as a stepping stone, making the current quarters that they work look good so that they can put them on their portfolios and then get that corner office somewhere else. And because
the White House.
And what decision would you make, by the way, if you knew that you didn't have to live with the consequences of your actions? That's what's happening right now. These people.
You described our country.
No, but see, that's even without going into that. When we were talking about these people making the decisions on the disabled, they're making those decisions. When you talked about they didn't know what Parkinson's was and was that Michael J. Fox, they don't care. They know that they're told. If you have, there's somebody counting. We had 25 people asked to be on, and we allowed 10.
Yep.
And if you come in with 11 one day, you're going to get a dirty look from the boss because we told you we want to keep it under 10. And if you get 8, you might be the boss next day.
Keywords, right, Lou? Like, they said cancer. Okay, give that to them. That's the buzzword we were listening for, or whatever.
You're managing based on criteria that have nothing to do with the business's success, but very much to do with the short-term stats.
I came away with the feeling too, like you're completely at the mercy of, did somebody have a fight with their boyfriend or girlfriend the night before? What's their status right now? Are
true.
they hungry? Are they waiting for lunch? Are they trying to get out? Are they uncomfortable because their air conditioning's not so great inside? Like, you're not talking to a medical professional on a medical situation. You're talking to a cast member who they took like 60 days to change this process. What kind of training could that even possibly begin to happen with?
Exactly.
You know?
It's just the listen for these specific terms, because this one will be like avoid us a lawsuit and whatever. And then, like you said, listen for those words, listen for those terms, and keep it under 10 people a day or how many ever.
And you can use all this for your own prejudices. What if one of these people's racist? And what if the person asking is black? And they say, well, I'm really getting rid of you, N-word, because that's how I feel. But I'm going to be able to get away with it forever and have my little chuckle when I go home to my beer because the boss said only allow this many. And we got to this many before you got here.
It does allow for bias. That is absolutely.
It allows for sexism. Right? It allows for exchange of favors.
And like I said, it allows for complete uneducatedness. You know, when it comes to, I'm telling you, we all know somebody that's dealing with something. Someone in our family, someone in our life that's dealing with somebody. Something, and the struggles they deal with. Now, they may not all qualify for DAS or something. I'm not saying that, but the struggles they're dealing with, and it because you're with that person. Doctors know what these are because they deal with multiple people coming in. They understand the afflictions, the limitations physically on the human body, and these people are not. They're not paid. First of all, they're not paid enough to be able to make that call. Let's be real.
That's a good point.
And they're not trained enough to be able to make that call. They don't know when you don't know specific ailments, how can you make a judgment? And if somebody's answer to seeing somebody in front of them in a wheelchair with Parkinson's is that what Michael J. Fox has? I fully expected to have a medical professional come at that point because I heard that there was a backup.
Yeah.
If that is your knowledge to sit there and think that, first of all, Michael J. Fox with at his age is a lot different than a 70-plus-year-old with the same thing.
And by the same token, somebody who's been suffering with it for years, as has their family, is in a different position for somebody who's new to it all.
Sure. Absolutely.
A lot of medical things, as I've had personal reason to know in the last few weeks, there's medical stuff that comes out of left field that you think you're doing perfectly fine. And all of a sudden, so not only are you in the dark on some of the details, not only are you trying to find the way that works for you to cope with it, you're in emotional and intellectual trauma. You're not able to cope if they were the best in the world. And if they go out of their way to be the other way,
And wouldn't the perfect medicine, when there is no medicine for a disease like that or Alzheimer's, wouldn't the perfect medicine be the happiest place on earth?
It should be.
Great.
It should be.
I mean, maybe back 30 years ago.
if God forbid, because I'm not wishing ill on anyone, the person who asked you the Michael J. Fox question, if suddenly tomorrow morning they wake up sick with that disease, and they go to the hospital and they go to the doctor and they're confused and they're disoriented. And they go and the doctor says, well, we've done all the tests. Dr. House comes out and tells you, you've got this. Is your first reply about yourself going to be, ooh, is that what Michael J. Fox said?
Right.
Who cares? Who cares?
I was are we talking about Marty McFly? Are we talking about the person sitting in front of you?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I remember Rogue Attraction says here Disney partnered with Advent Health to use them for DAS evaluation. I remember when the company touted that as, okay, we're getting medical professionals on scene here in order to make these evaluations. On the one hand, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe you're taking this out of the cast members' hands. But apparently that's not the case. This has not been the experience of people who have received DAS, or at least have tried to receive DAS after begging for the service.
And I'm almost wondering if that service is only because I didn't see it at all in the hour that I waited outside, and I watched and they were doing. I almost wonder if that service is only available if you go online, and then they can bring in somebody who's not physically there. You can bring in.
Oh, you can telehealth in or whatever.
Yeah, you know, because I don't think that Abbott healthcare person is on location.
Right. So there's two ways to get DAS. There's one in advance with a, virtual representative or a representative
is Disney
virtually.
Paying Abbott, or is Abbott paying Disney for the product placement?
Good point.
Are they getting the very, very bare minimum in return for getting their name out there and having Disney pay for it? So anyway, we won't solve all that. But
so many times though, Lou, it's all about, it's not give the guest all you can give them, like Walt. You know, his mantra of yesterday was, it's all about what can we get away with. That's the mindset change at the Walt Disney Company, especially in regards to the parks. Fortunately, that hasn't yet affected the cruise lines. But
and by the way, in saying this, it's not because Walt was he was a good person. I think obviously he created amazing things.
Sure,
but he knew it was good business to do it the right way too.
Right.
It's just good business. That's what I was saying before about that other situation. You'll read more in my thing.
Mm-hmm.
If fly-by-night operators who are sleazeballs with not much skin in the game, because if they close up tomorrow, they can open 2 weeks later down the road.
Yep.
If they know it's bad business to do it the other way, if they understand the kind of negative PR they can get, if they aren't realizing that being good to those people is good for them personally, how the hell does Disney not get it? How the hell does somebody as experienced and as big and as powerful as Disney not get it? I can't imagine it. Anyhow,
willful ignorance is the answer.
It's terrible. But
I'm just saying, if they don't care about the people, but if they realize it's bad for them, how can you not know that? But then I've said the same thing about the other stuff they've cut. You know, I think that business of getting rid of the bus ride from the airport in Florida is the stupidest piece of bad management, false economy.
Wait, that's a real thing they did? That's so bad. Are you kidding me?
Oh no, they got rid of Magical Express, the service that took you from the airport, included with your vacation package, by the way, took you from the airport to Walt Disney World property.
Where did it go? If it was so magical, wouldn't it still be here?
You would think so. I mean, people were really outraged over that because now you have to factor in, price of Uber or some other.
Let me ask you a question: if you rent a car instead, gosh,
but that's still like
for a while there, Lou, they were charging
in and have to navigate a new place, especially.
Well, exactly.
Not to mention. Recently here, we took a rental car to Tampa to go to Busch Gardens, and when we came back to Florida here not too long ago, we actually opted for the Lyft services because we found out, like, around here, like, it comes to about the same amount of money anyway, so might as well have someone else drive it.
That's true. And here's the thing, too. Two things with this. One, they were charging for parking when they made this decision to get rid of Magical Express. So if you used a car, let's say rental, or maybe you drove down yourself, you had to pay per night to stay at a Walt Disney World resort, even if you were staying at the Grand Flo, Polynesian. Didn't matter.
Moly.
Yeah, so they were making money off that back end.
But most important of all, if they still had the bus, which meant you didn't get a car, and you didn't pay an Uber, and you had the urge to, golly, I wonder what that new park Universal has.
There it is.
You might have said, yeah, but then we'd have to pay to get there and go back and forth, and let's just stay here.
You maintain the Disney bubble.
I would like to say, as someone who has a younger brother with high-end autism, back years ago, back in like 2011, one of the reasons we opted for Universal over Disney was because Universal, and I have seen it even in my most recent trip, they're so much better with those who are in, certain situations, special needs, all that sort of thing. They do a lot of work on their staff, even back then before some of this stuff was more well-known, where people were more knowledgeable what was going on with these sort of things in the world. They have done a lot of work to try to make sure there's still a good guest experience. You might have to pay a bit for Universal, but you'll get the experience. I feel like Disney, they're just doing everything they can to stab their audience in the back, and it's disgusting.
Nolan, I've told this before, so I won't belabor it, but many years ago when I was writing about food and wine and travel and whatever, I'd get invited to Disney all the time. And when they built the Swan and the Dolphin, and one of them was managed by Weston and the other by Sheraton. And I'm sitting there with the Weston PR person at the Dolphin, no, at the Swan, in their Italian restaurant, that good Italian restaurant there. And she's explaining it to me. And she says, you may not know this, but we only have a 5-year management contract. Normally, when we take a management contract on a big resort hotel somewhere, it's for 10 or 15 or 20 years. But why we're here is this. Disney decided they would do convention business. And they started doing it at the Contemporary and at the Poly and and they couldn't get any. Why? Because these big corporations that want to bring 2, 3, 5, 10,000 people down, they want to customize the experience. They want to do their own menu picking and their own event thing and their own choice of colors and bands. And Disney was telling them, well, we've got plan A, plan B, plan C. Take them or leave them. And they were dying on the vine trying to start it up. So what they said was, well, let's take 2 big hotel companies that understand how to cater to these companies and let them run these 2 buildings for 5 years, but only if they hire our people in lesser positions so they can learn it, so that after that is up, and we decided it was worth it for the business anyway, and it has been good for us. But basically, we've been a free training class for Disney in how to do the convention business.
Wow.
Yeah. Because Disney was so adamant when corporations said, well, but couldn't you change that plan to where we have 4 hours of cocktails and 2 hours? No, sorry, we only do it the one way. Because Disney's attitude was, we know better, and it's easier for us to just keep replicating the same experience.
There's the Disney way and the wrong way.
Well, but that's what's going on is a level of somebody managing from the position of streamline it, make it standard. It'll be cheaper and easier. And that's all great if anybody's willing to buy it that way. Oops.
What can we get away with? It's so sad that I have to keep repeating that with everything Disney does. And and that goes to the Aspire program, which we didn't have time to cover here today, and a whole bunch of other topics that I wanted to feature on T3PO. It's just racking up, and sometimes the bad news, it gets hard to bear. But Marty,
and I know everybody says this on all of these channels, that let me come and play. We're not here because we hate Disney. We're not here because we like doing nothing but negative. We try to find every positive we can. We wish we could do more that's positive, but they won't let us because they just won't make it so. I mean,
so true.
All right,
that is
example. Perfect example. Moana's Adventure with Water, or whatever they call it. All right, you got Moana, the hottest. You got Moana, the hottest princess of them all. And then it comes out to a huge success. It sells, rewatches on cable and the music and Halloween costumes and everything else. So, gosh, in the old days, it'd be like, let's get her in the damn parks. And let's get her in a big way. What do? They decide after 15 years to build this water thing. They crowd it with not nature and water, but with little commercials for their political point of view on all of which would be stupid, but hey, that's them and they did it. But to then have it not work after 4 or 5 years, to then have it smell of sewage, to then have it, I mean, what the heck is somebody thinking or not thinking? It's like, even if you're going to do it badly, do it badly and have the damn spigot work, Even if you're going to do a bad, terrible, awful,
very
stupid
base level. Yeah.
I mean, take out the Fountain of Nations, which was always one of the great things, especially at night when you were going home after having watched the show on the lagoon, and that cool mist from the water was there, and the lights. And take it out. Well, if you must, I guess. Maybe you've got a good reason as far as maintenance or whatever. But what you put back is a big plaza with lights in the ground, and then they don't work. And then you put out the excuse, well, we didn't do it so it would hold up to pressure washing. And the average person who's never run a theme park, who's not an expert, who's certainly not the Disney level expert, is saying, golly, if I had a place where 50,000 people walk through every day and I got a pressure wash after it when the lights go on, I would make it so it worked.
And it's not like these lights are brand new technology. How long has this kind of tech been around?
Well, but wait, and it's worse than that.
They're also like one of the biggest companies in the world. Even if they were new technology, you have, or in theory, you have the money and the networking connections to get the top talent out there and fix it.
And Spencer,
S-Drive,
especially as new technology of all the parks, Epcot was all built around the idea of perfecting new technology.
Oh, that is true. That is a really good point.
Well said, Lou.
And Vash, if you still got those pictures I sent you, that British boat, about 4 weeks after that opened, I happened to see these pictures from the Frankfurt Boat Show for a company called Sunseeker that makes yachts in England. And their boat has lights like that in the deck. You know, the part that's exposed to the ocean, to salt water, to wind, to rain, and that's all on a power source that's running off a generator or solar panels out there in the middle of the ocean, and they can make it work.
Ooh, you're gonna have to send that to me. I want to see.
You lost them? No problem.
Yeah, I don't have them right now.
You have too many, but I know. Hand. Well, anyway.
But you make a good point, though. There are ways to have made that work. There are ways to have designed that in such a way that it would continue to work. I mean, look, the fiber optic effects.
I'm just saying, taking aside the creative question of which is better, what used to be there and what's there now, and simply putting it on a level of, well, whatever you do have there, get it done and make it work, and they still can't.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. I
guess
don't know
what
why.
Happens. I guess that's what happens when you have like 20-year veterans, and after worldwide issues happen, you show them the door, and those kind of people could have taught other younger Imagineers or cast members how to approach things. But that's what happens, I guess, when you teach your staff like dirt.
A loss of institutional knowledge, that's for sure, but also a loss of will, a loss of like, you know what, good is good enough, that kind of thing.
Yeah. There was that video we found of this girl, sweet young thing who worked for Disney, who had left and was telling the story. She was in the concierge department, whatever they call it. In other words, for all the hotels around the resort at Orlando, she was with the people who made up the flower baskets and the gift baskets and the floral decorations for corporate banquets and stuff like that. And one day they told her, well, as part of the 7,000 people layoff thing, the department's being discontinued. And she went, well, that's great, but just out of curiosity, who's going to do it? Aren't they still going to have flowers at the XYZ Corporation's cocktail party on the patio at the yacht club or whatever? Oh, yeah. They took 5, I think it was, of the top old time, had been there forever in that department people, and said, if you guys put together a few bucks, we'll make a deal with you that you're the franchise. In other words, they're not Disney employees anymore, which means all the people below the 5 bosses don't have to get the same benefits, don't have to get the same deals. They're still going to hire people to do it. They're going to farm it out to a brand new separate corporation so they don't have to carry them on the books. So the service, in theory, is staying the same or about the same, at least, in name only. I don't know about in quality, but it's no longer their problem.
Right. And we've seen the Disney company do that a lot of times. I think like valet service used to be internally done by Disney, but now they have a third party for that and a couple of other things.
Every time I
it's
see
just-
these things,
Dodging
I laugh.
responsibilities.
Because I remember at Universal Studios in Hollywood, when I was making a show there, and there was a terrible fire. Half the backlot burned down.
Mhm.
A lot of the attractions burned down. When I walked in the next day, it was like literally the bomb went off. And a lot of the famous New York streets and the Court of Miracles and the wall on the building where the King Kong attraction was, the blistering of the paint, they estimated the temperature at the height of the fire was 1,200 degrees on that wall. Okay.
Right.
Oh,
And it used to be Universal had their own in-house Universal City cops, because technically they're a city, by the way.
Yeah.
And they decided we don't need the expense of having our own expert movie-oriented security. We'll hire somebody. And it turned out the arsonist who started that fire worked for their security company that they hired. And it happened to be a company called Burns, Burns Security.
ironic.
Yeah, just a little. But anyway, I'm rattling on as I usually do by this time, because I'm tired, you're tired, everybody out there is tired. We've had a great time, but I guess we're sneaking up on the end of this episode, aren't we?
We are. Mr. H is now live, has been live, but that's okay, though. You'll be redirected to Mr. H in just a moment. I want to go ahead and thank all of our panelists here profusely. We have a couple of super chats to get through, but I want to go ahead and promote each and every one of you, because your time is obviously valuable, and thank you so much for sharing it with me, with our audience, and the same goes for our audience as well. DisneyFan55 with $5. Thank you all for another fantastic show. Well, thank you very much
for watching.
Yes,
You
I
rock.
agree. I agree. Thank you so much. KMG with another super chat, $10 this time. Off topic from Disney, it's being announced on social that Jared Leto has allegedly been offered the role of Skeletor in the upcoming Motu movie. Why does Hollywood keep destroying my childhood? That's
Damn
You
it.
take the best. Sorry to interrupt you, Vash. You take the
Please, go
best
ahead.
He-Man character, and you put Jared Leto in that role. I don't want to hate. I'm not gonna say I hate the dude personally, but has he ever been in a good role or even a good movie? Like, I thought
I don't
The
understand.
Squad was okay, but
I don't understand Disney's love affair with Jared Leto. Like, I know this isn't going to be Disney, but the fact
Sure.
that Disney keeps putting in
Hollywood.
stuff,
It's
I'm
pretty.
like,
It's
yeah,
pretty,
but
That's
yeah.
true.
clear. It's pretty clear that his agent has some photos of KK.
That's possible, Lou. It's the only thing I could think of.
Yes, until we meet again, I think is the the meme there for Skeletor currently. Thank you so much.
Good
Did not know
news,
that
please. I need some after that one.
Yeah, I did not know that Jared Leto had been offered the role there, because it's just being announced. Thank you so much again.
Can I
he has
slap
the helpful
whoever
insight
did
here.
offer him the role? Is that allowed? Is that too aggressive?
I don't know. I
You
do
will
agree
have
with
to
you.
be arrested, but I don't know if a jury will convict you.
There you go. The love affair continues, I suppose. Sad but true. Thank you so much, KMG, for everything. The mom.
Oh, cat, that's what I need.
People abuse overweight or a stub toe for being handicapped is silly. If you're missing an arm or a mental disorder, you are perfectly fine. Walk it off. Yeah,
It's true. That's why people
well,
abuse it.
I got on a plane in LA one time to fly to Nashville,
Mhm.
and the girl sitting next to me has this little Yorkie on her lap.
Mhm.
And I happen to be highly allergic to dogs and cats and things.
Mhm.
And I said, what's with the dog? And she giggled. She says, it's my support animal. I said, yeah, but what about everybody else? And it's just in your lap. You don't even have to keep it in a carrier or something. What if it poops all over you and me and everybody in this row? And she giggled and she looked at me and she said, it's California. And that's the thing. That's why people with real illness don't get treated seriously and with compassion. Because every time, tell the truth. How many cars you see out there with a handicap pass and you immediately think, oh, they got their doctor to get them one.
Well,
Most of
that was a thing at UCLA 10, 15 years ago with McNown and some of the quarterback. They were giving them passes to go.
Really?
But yeah. Like they were given handicap placards so they could park in handicap spots all over SoCal. But yeah, there's got to be a common sense meet in the middle ground. And it shouldn't be one way or the other way 100%.
But the net effect is it makes everybody in contempt of the system. It makes everybody assume everybody else is playing the game, or hedging their bets some kind of way. Anyway.
Man, it's
you kids today. I tell you, the world's going to hell.
Well, we need
I'll
some
say
sort
this.
of law as like an alternative in a way, because like we can't have judgment calls because that could benefit discrimination. But on the flip side, if you start catering to everybody, it just prioritizes everyone who's taking advantage of it and neglecting those who actually need it. We need some sort of alternative.
One last note on my situation. We brought doctors' notes, medical records, DMV reports on the fact that said person could not drive because of certain situations and things. We had these documents with us in a folder. They could care less, and it's fine. Like we were willing.
Because the first day that they showed up for the job to get trained, they were told, first of all, everybody's going to have documents. They're all bull.
Yeah.
Because that's the cynicism of the way this thing has metastasized that's created the problem.
Yeah, and I didn't think I told the person I didn't think that any of that was going to fly because they're not trained. They're not trained. They're not interested. They don't even want to hear why what you have. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear how are you affected by a line, and they don't care. They don't want to know what got you to that point. You can volunteer that information, can volunteer a disease or something like that, but they're trained to not ask what is wrong with you, because that is not allowed legally. So you have to volunteer that information if you want to go anywhere, because if you just sit there and tell them why you can't wait in a line, they're not going to give it to you. So you have to volunteer that information. They force you to, but they don't ask. They're not allowed to.
I can tell you right now there's a crisis going on where you have with chronic illness, and it needs to be obviously addressed. But these companies who just seemingly decide whether you're disabled or not to a certain spectrum, this is getting out of hand fast. It's getting out of hand fast, and I'm surprised the Walt Disney Company is even doing it, because optically it looks terrible. And I understand there might be abuse somewhere here or there, but this system's got to change because it ain't working for anybody. I don't think.
I feel like, sadly, I feel like this had nothing to do with stopping any abuse. It affected their bottom line on Lightning Lane.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, it's look.
It was money out of their pocket, and that's why. And that's why they did
it. In society in general, things that were well intended to qualify things instead become ways of clearing a desk of inbox to outbox. For example, how many job listings have you ever seen that said must have a degree in so-and-so? How many people do you know who didn't have that degree but were better at it or better suited to the job? Doesn't matter. The HR person has a stack of folders that needs to go from the inbox to the outbox, and it's an easy way of leveling the choices. And that's what's happened in society. All of this has become a process facilitator, not a people facilitator.
Yeah. That's
not to mention
that's very
making
indeed.
it that people with very little training experience or quality can do the job on paper.
And just like what was shared in the chat as well, Marty. I mean, people who were abusing this before apparently are still doing it now, perhaps. Yeah. And so it's like, does it really work for anybody? It's tragic. It really is. But thank you so much for everybody joining us on this amazing episode of T3PO Live. Man, we haven't even scratched the surface on topics that we're going to cover here in the upcoming days right here. But thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We know it's very valuable there. I want to go ahead and start out with you, Nolan. Where can the people find you on this great, big, beautiful web out there?
All right, well, you can find me on my channel, Nolan Thunder. I basically do those UFO shows you used to see on History Channel, but with video game mysteries and lost media urban legends. It's a mix of horror, documentary, and comedy. I have some elaborate productions. I got another one in development currently. And I would also say be on the lookout, because there's been some rumors going around of something about this guy might be starting up a second channel sometime here soon.
Oh,
so might want to keep an eye on that. There might be some announcements coming within the next 2 weeks, so be on the lookout for that.
Go on there, hit the subscribe button on Nolan Thunder's channel. I'm sure he'll have a community note maybe about if anything pops off and those rumors are true. That is for sure. One of my all-time amazing people that I've met through that Park Place Network. I love this guy so much, especially when he shows up for these shows and when he's in the chat and doing all those things. Spencer McCooley, what is going on there? Where can people find you on this great, beautiful web out there?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can find me on Bounding Into Comics, where we put up news every day. Check out the website, check out the YouTube channel, check out the Twitter account, all that fun stuff. If you want more of me, you can go to my YouTube channel, Studio Kabuto. It's out there. You can follow me on Twitter, like Vash has up here, at Kabuto Writer Mab. You can also find me on That Game Place, which we will be live streaming tomorrow morning with some of my good friends here, Nolan, Marvin, also Culture Casino, Jonas. Hopefully Stone Loki will be able to join us. All the good crew over there. There's a lot to follow and check out. You'll never be starved for content with anybody around this year, so go follow everyone.
If you are an avid reader of famous lawsuits involving Mandalorian actresses,
you can. That's true. You can find me. I am in
there too. Books. Actually quoted in the lawsuit. Not one.
Like, I hope the next round of filings cites us again. And also, yeah, shout out to you guys over at That Game Place, or That Park Place. I saw you guys out of nowhere. Gina Carano shared one of your old articles about her, so that was really cool. Got a bunch of exposure. So shout out to you guys for that. But yeah, check out everybody. Follow everybody here. It's all good. Tonight, go check out Marvin on Toonie Talk or whatever show he has going on tonight. It's all good stuff.
It's the wrestling one.
I don't remember what it is. I just know we have a show.
You know, I put you in charge of the scheduling.
Yeah, exactly. We have a master schedule out there.
Where
it's
am
crazy.
I now? Is this the pro show? Where are we?
If it's Tuesday, this must be T3PO.
yes.
Easy for you to remember.
In 16 days or whatever.
Oh man, it is crazy, guys. We we have to stay coordinated in order to give you guys the content all the time, every time. Thank you so much, Spencer, for joining me on here on T3PO Live.
Pleasure,
Marty, one of my just favorite people of all time here. I love talking to you, bro. Thank you so much for coming on this show and sharing some amazing insight on not just this story, but others. Marty, where can the people find you?
I don't have a YouTube or anything like that. You'll find me on like Marty084 at X, Twitter. I just want to say, like, what an absolute pleasure it was to be on with the panel and all you guys. Everybody brought such insight and perspective to the conversation, and I really enjoyed my time.
Hey, we don't sell yourself short there, Marty, because we love having you. I actually love following your Twitter account. I think you bring some amazing insight and some. We've featured some of your videos before on here.
Yeah, you'll find me in the parks
always
taking pictures of long lightning lane lines and.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'll throw the shade. I'll throw the shade out there. You know, I've been known to buy Universal dog tag in Disneyland before.
Yes.
Right.
Careful with your terminology of throwing the shade, because in Disney they're like, "Oh, you're gonna make us cooler?" No.
No.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Marty. Always love everything that you bring here, very much indeed. Now, Lou, you got a couple of things going on in that Park Place Network, right? All kinds of stuff.
I don't know. You
on
tell
Pro
me.
Channel. Well, you've got the Genre Guys, right? Which makes its premiere on the WW Pro YouTube channel under membership only, by the way.
Yes.
And you've had some amazing episodes, which after 90 days, they come here to that Park Place Podcast Online or that Pod Place, which if you haven't yet, folks, please subscribe to the channel in order to receive those episodes with a little bit extra production value added to them. We also have Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you that occurs as a live show every Sunday. Oh, yes, with you. And that is absolutely the case. It occurs every single Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Did I miss anything, Lou? What else you got going on?
Well, I mean, I'm here and I'm there, and those Frenchies seek me everywhere. Is he in heaven or is he in hell? That damned elusive Lou. I can't make a rhyme. Oh well, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. But listen, 6 months or so ago, I didn't do any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was just a happily retired bum. Now I'm a busy, happily retired bum. And those of you in England, I meant that in the American sense, although I have one. And this guy Vash over here, man, he's the hardest working man since James Brown, as far as I'm concerned, and as melodic at times. But also do look for that article tomorrow.
Yes.
On that Park Place, because every occasionally I write over there too.
Yeah, I'll probably be retweeting it on my Twitter account as well. It'll be that Park Place very, very shortly. I'm sure we'll have some coverage on it as well.
It's not a happy story, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But it's something we got to think about. So.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. You can please go ahead and you can contact us for your questions, either for Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you, or if you just want to go ahead and send out stuff that would help us out with our coverage. I know people have been using that email for that purpose, so please go ahead, T3POnline@yahoo.com. Very much appreciated. Thank you so much for joining us here on today's episode of T3PO Live. Thank you. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button there. We love to hear or see the support any way that you can. Sorry, I do apologize there. I messed that up. But thank you so much for supporting the channel any way you can. You'll be notified for new videos if you do subscribe. If you did like this video, please like this video. And, I think that just about wraps us up right now. So please, everybody, take care. You'll be redirected to Mr. H, as it's currently in progress, I am sure. I'm sure they're like, what's going on here? Can take it so long.
We're always
Thank you so
on
much.
schedule in this network, right?
Well, that's just how it works, right? Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.